couldn't take the pressure of doing that.
Yeah, if you want to come on up to the microphone and maybe introduce yourself, let us know a little bit about you. We appreciate your interest in the advisory committee.
So my name is JD Inge.
Oh, sorry.
And no, it's fine. It happens with most people. But I am a sophomore at Monarch High School this year. So, and I've been looking into the youth advisory committee for a while now, and I've decided that I want to be a part of it. So.
Great. We appreciate the interest.
Yeah.
Definitely. They've been doing some good things this year.
Yep.
Well, we'll just take a few questions from the board, and yeah, who'd like to start? Ilya?
JD, what are you hoping to accomplish by joining the Youth Leadership Council?
So by being a part of it, what I really want is to kind of be a bigger part in the community, play a bigger role in organizing things and then also giving back. So that's really what I want to accomplish, is just being able to help out around the community more. Kind of giving back, as I've taken so much growing up, kind of being able to give back a little bit.
So that's the perfect attitude. This is what this leadership council is all about. If we could quote him, we have this on recorded, right? This is perfect.
Yes.
So.
Now, you're going to be able to accomplish all that better if you show up at every meeting. I know we've had some attendance issues at meetings, so what's your schedule like? Are you highly scheduled, or will you be able to attend every meeting?
So I don't have that much going on. I play soccer for Monarch, but that ends end of this month.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then Wednesdays I have nothing going on, so I'm free to attend every single meeting.
Great.
Great.
I also want to say, great application. You
Oh,
really
thank
put a
you.
lot of work and thought into it, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead.
What do you think has been lacking for youth opportunities in Superior?
So, as I know, for me growing up, I didn't know about a lot of opportunities going on. So I would say just kind of putting the word out there more. And then as for the opportunities themselves, just kind of more fun events for the youth, kind of bring them together as a town.
And that's what I liked about your application too, is that you said you wanted to do more work, actual activities, instead of just staffing at a booth or planning some things. And I think that's great. I don't really have a question for you, because I too loved your application, but just to keep the enthusiasm with you and to try and engage everybody that's on the committee to think about what can we do together and have fun doing this, not
Right,
just fill out a sheet and you go and volunteer at something, but actually what can you all do together to create opportunities or activities to have fun. So I encourage that. I think it's great, and thank you for being interested in this.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Great.
Just kind of a side question here. I'm interested in your experience in the soccer programs with Treble and Broomfield and Monarch. Monarch's having a great year this year, soccer-wise. What's your experience with the soccer programs? How do you think that will help you in working on this committee?
So just part of being a team and working with everyone to get a common goal done, I think that'll really be a big help, in being part of this committee. That, and then also, taking a leadership role. Even on the soccer team, some people take a leadership role, and that's what this committee is all about, is taking youth leadership. So.
Good. Thanks.
Yep.
Great, we appreciate your time. And one question we always ask every applicant, and doubtful it's an issue to you, but we ask if there's a potential conflict of interest that you might have with serving on the Youth Advisory Committee. Do you foresee
Nope.
any? Okay, didn't
Thank
think
you.
so. Okay, well, thanks for coming up, and we'll be in touch
Yeah.
about the next steps. So.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you.
The next we had was Kendall Magnus. She wasn't able to make it tonight, so
Okay.
we'll see if we need to reschedule that. So that leaves us with Mayank Mishra. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Sorry if I didn't.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, let us know a little bit about yourself and your interest in the committee.
For sure. So my name is actually Mayank Mishra. It's totally fine. And I go to Peach Peak Charter School. I'm a junior this year. And I am the captain of my speech and debate team and the science Olympiad team. And I really like organizing and NHS. And that really sparked my passion for service. And made me really want to organize and create stuff with community, which is why I was so interested in the Leadership Council.
Great.
So I'm really interested seeing that you go to peak, and it raises a question I've been pondering and that I'll ask you is, how have the high school youth in particular that go to most people go to Monarch, but there's also Fairview, Boulder, Peak to Peak. I'm not sure what other schools. How much contact has there been among the different of the students in the different schools, and can you think that can be improved?
Definitely. And so being part of speech and debate, I interact with a lot of kids from other schools because it is a competition with many schools. But from Superior itself, I actually didn't know there's this many teenagers, and the first time I actually realized there's so many youths in Superior was when I walked into the room for my intro meeting with the Leadership Council. And that really, I think, is something that I would really like to be seen, that I can help with the Leadership Council, is getting that interaction going. Like, I would like to meet more people, and even outside of speech and debate, because, obviously there's a singular focus there. But meeting kids within my own community where we can go hang out and they know what I'm talking about when I talk about let's go to community park, right? So I think that's something I would really like to see more of.
So Joe, just so you know, so there are kids from obviously Monarch, Peak to Peak, Fairview. So there's a
There's a mix already.
Absolutely.
I don't have another question, but another great application. You did a
Yeah.
really nice job on it.
In your application, you specifically mentioned maintenance and development of parks and trails, and you specifically mentioned the bike park and the dog park. Have you been to the bike park recently?
I haven't gone since the summer, sir.
Okay, well, during the summertime, you probably noticed of the overgrowth in the park and
Yes.
the severe need of maintenance there. Did anything cross your mind on what you could come up with, a program you could come up with to help maintain that park a little bit?
Yes, sir. So I've actually had a little bit of experience working with trails and parks, having volunteered with another service. And I realized that it's something that can be accomplished with a few dedicated hours of service, with a few people. So a select group of people, maybe even from maybe a project with the Leadership Council, and maybe a dedicated day, and we could get rid of that overgrowth. We could remold the hills, and we can even help get rid of the weeds that are clogging up the trails. And I think even like 1 or even 2 days at most can clear that all up. So
Yeah, isn't there a mountain bike club on campus? Oh, no, you go to Peak to
No,
Peak. Do you have
no,
a
sir,
mountain
yeah.
bike club there?
no, sir.
No, okay. Good, well, thank you.
Thank you for your application. I too liked it, and I like the idea when you talk about bringing the teens that live here in Superior together, because we don't really have that. And that's one thing I think that's a valuable outcome of this Youth Leadership Council, is that teens that didn't even know each other all of a sudden are meeting and recognizing that you live near each other. So I think that's very valuable. We need a sense of community within the town, and the way to start that is with the youth. I think it's very good. So I just love your enthusiasm. Keep it up. Keep leading every chance you get, because leaders are really important to establish themselves at an early age. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Is your sister Monica?
Yes, sir.
So I gave you and your sister a ride to Pick to Pick years ago.
Yes, sir. I remember.
Is there a conflict of interest
Yeah.
here?
Yes, final question. Any potential for
Did he
conflict?
charge you for that?
Yeah.
Did I get you there on time?
Yes, sir.
That's good. And, any conflict of interest that
I
you
don't
can think
believe
of?
so.
Okay, very good. Thanks again, and we'll be in touch with
Yeah.
both of you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right,
Okay.
move on to the municipal or sheriff's department update.
Yeah. The town board receives periodic reports from the Boulder County Sheriff's Office regarding their services provided to the town. We had Sergeant Chamberlain scheduled for tonight. He unfortunately couldn't make it, and so he called Sergeant Inholm to come and pitch in for him at the last minute. So Lance has done a quick review of the report and is ready to present to the board tonight. There's some questions that in the report that he's not sure about. We can always get back to you, since he's just had a day to really go through it. So with that.
Good evening.
Okay, welcome.
If you don't remember from when I was here before, my name is Lance Enholm, the sergeant. I'll be taking over for Jim Chamberlain in January. I know I can't replace him, but I'll do my best. And he did call me this afternoon and say that he wasn't going to be in tonight. He's got a medical problem, so he asked me to come. So I've looked at this report briefly. I'll try and answer any questions you have. I'm going to go through it fairly quick. And then again, if you got any questions, if I can't answer them tonight, I'll be sure to get an answer back for you. And I assume everybody had a chance to go through it ahead of time? Okay. So this is we use all these acronyms in law enforcement, obviously. CFS, it's our calls for service. That encompasses every time. Pretty much every time a deputy gets on the radio, either they're initiating something or they're being called to a location. That's our call for service. You can see that it went up slightly in 2014. 2013 is when we added the traffic car, and that's why there's that big jump. Last year, you probably have already addressed that. And then as we go through this report, I've noticed that there's some different reporting numbers throughout it, and that's because we changed our CAD system at the very end of 2012, 2013. So some of those numbers, you have to look really closely at them to get the same numbers through them. This is our actual deputy-initiated activity, so this is everything that's not dispatched to us. This is everything that a deputy does, from a traffic stop to a pedestrian contact, to doing a business check, any of those things, doing area checks, spending time in the parks, all of that is everything that they're doing. Does that make sense?
Yep. Lance, would you prefer us to wait to ask questions at the end?
Whatever you're most comfortable with.
I don't have a question yet, but I have one coming up.
Okay.
So I thought I'd get that question out of the way.
Thanks for the warning. All right. Case reports, this is everything that we've taken documented reports on. Okay? And this includes everything from property crimes to the kids trying to buy alcohol at Superior Liquor to any kind of traffic report, that sort of stuff. And then Jim did want me to mention, I guess as a side note, we've had a increase this year in 2015 of vehicle trespasses, but he wanted me to mention now, and when we get to the detective section, that we've actually either made arrests or issued warrants on 5 different groups that have been down here. So we've had some great success in that as well. Do you guys want to get into the numbers at all? These are just the statistics, shows by reports. The 2 things that stood out to me, May and September, obviously in 2014, those case report numbers went up. September is primarily the number of kids trying to get to Superior Liquor and purchase alcohol. And we have, last year we ended up being able to summons all but 2 of those individuals. We were able to find all of them. So.
And the May number, I mean, it goes from 65 to 103. That's a significant.
It does, and it's the same sort of thing. I think it's the kids at the end of the year getting ready to party some, as well as it's starting to get nice out again and there's more people out. Okay. So.
Prom night.
What's that? Prom night?
Prom night.
So
Yes, ma'am.
when a youth under 21 tries to buy alcohol, the entity from which they're doing it actually calls the police.
Yeah, we've got a great relationship with Superior Liquor, and they call us. And again, it's primarily kids coming from CU. And I think you'll see that those numbers drop off pretty quick after September because the word gets out that they're all getting busted. What we've tried to do is cite all those summonses into Muni Court here, because the other option that we have is to charge them with criminal impersonation because they're using a fake identification. But that's a felony, all right? And if it's their first time, we're really trying to keep it local, get them involved in the community, understand what that really turns out to be, and then, does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions on the?
I just have one question. So your total calls for service are 8485, and in that, is that the 4901, the deputy initiated call? Are they
Yes.
part of that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
So half
It
of
would
them.
be everything.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
4,900 are deputy initiated, and the others are actually, okay,
Correct, calls for service.
Right.
Yep, dispatch calls.
dispatch calls.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you.
You bet. Is there anything that stands out on these numbers that you'd like to discuss? There wasn't anything that really-
What's a TRO violation bottom line?
That's a temporary restraining order. So those are typically issued in like domestic violence
Right.
situations, or if somebody's been harassed by somebody, they'll go to the courts and ask for a restraining order, and that's the time when people are violating that order and contacting that person.
Yeah, obviously, it's more than doubled from previous years.
It has, although our numbers for, if you look, our numbers for domestics have stayed fairly consistent. I'm not sure, I can't answer if that's a question of people not understanding what those restraining order violation rules are. It's up, but it's not significant. Any other questions on the person's crimes? It's pretty low for a community of this size. Property crimes, primarily we end up dealing with, you'll see the burglaries this year increased again. The criminal trespasses to the vehicles, the break into vehicles, tend to be what we experience more frequently down here. That number is actually down in this report, and I think that's attributed to people leaving their garage doors open and then their vehicles being entered inside of the garage, which is actually a burglary. It's not just a vehicle trespass. It raises that up. So that's the reason primarily that number is a little bit lower. Did anything else? There isn't anything else that really stands out to me in this report either that's of a significant issue. Keep moving. Okay. Substance abuse, primarily those 20 liquor law are the kids trying to buy the alcohol at Superior Liquor. The rest of it's pretty low.
Why do you think it was up so much in 2014 from previous years? Or is that not that much of an increase? I guess it's, 15 more.
It stands out to me, but I think we saw a significant number this year as well. So for some reason, the kids at CU last year and they started this year thought they could come down here. I think if it's outside of the city of Boulder, this is one of the closest places for us to come. I'm not sure why that number increased, but again, it drops off really quickly when you start getting into October, because the word gets around that we're taking action and we're citing all those kids.
So how does that happen? The kid goes in fake ID, obviously Superior Liquor does
Superior
not
looks
keep
at it,
them.
recognizes that
And
it's a
then?
fake ID, they call us. Sometimes they stay around, sometimes they don't, but kind of ironically, frequently they use their real name. They just change their date of birth a little bit. So we've got a really good relationship with CU, and we're able to check their records, find out where they're at, contact them.
Really?
And
most of the time
then
they're
come to-
students. I mean,
Yes,
you'll
it's
find
almost entirely
students.
entirely CU students. Yes.
From
Yeah.
Superior out, from, not
No,
from,
from the
No.
campus.
but I mean, are they Superior students who attend CU?
I don't know all their, I couldn't answer that question for sure, but I don't believe that's.
So how do you share information, if at all, between municipalities?
What, you mean in terms of?
For example, if I got caught in Boulder and I got caught in Lafayette, and now I'm taking my attempted business to Superior, would anybody ever know this person happened to have already been caught 2 other times doing the same thing?
It would show, if they were cited, it would show up in their criminal history if we were to look at that. Miscellaneous crimes, you'll see there was a huge increase in the municipal violations charged into Superior. Again, I think that's because of our directed efforts to try and keep everything we can down here versus charging it into the county or state court. And that municipal violation includes those kids buying alcohol, shoplifting. Target, it's my understanding, Target's started being even more aggressive with their efforts to stop the shoplifters. So we're getting some more calls from them. And then thefts at other businesses as well. Do you have any other questions on that? Okay. Animal control calls for services. So this number, this graph represents all of our calls for service on anything animal related, which is what you'd consider to be a barking dog complaint, for example, or a dog at large, dog bites. It also includes all those other things when somebody calls us about a snake in their window well, a rabbit in their window well, a bat in their house. All of that falls under our calls for service for
So
animal
what do you
control.
do? So I've been up since 3 a.m., so I'm exhausted because there was a barking dog.
Me too.
Or like 3 o'clock, he was barking like for 2 hours straight.
Did you
I mean,
I don't want to call you out, but did you call us?
no, I didn't call, but I didn't know what to do though. Like what you do. It's so annoying.
Well, if you call us, we'll send a deputy out there to try and make contact with the people. And if we can't,
My wife said, go out there and see what house it's from, or we go and find knock on their door. I'm like, middle of the night.
yeah, it's probably wiser to call us and let us
Okay.
go deal with it. But
If it
we
happens
would.
tonight, I will, trust me, 'cause I need
We
to
will.
see.
We will send a deputy down there.
Seriously, 2 hours.
I have a resident who routinely emails me because there's a barking dog in her community, and they call you allegedly, and it never results in happening what they want to happen. They want the owners to be ticketed, and the dog will stop barking when you arrive, or the homeowner's not home, or something, and they're quite frustrated. What does it take with a barking dog to get it to stop?
Duct tape.
Well, if you want to get the information to Matt or me or Chamberlain, we'll follow up on it and
Okay.
see how many times they have called us. Make sure we
Okay.
have that documented, and then we
Okay.
send an animal control officer out there.
Right.
to
I think
verify
the,
sign 'em.
the issue often is if they have to give their name personally in the incident report, because then it starts getting retribution.
Correct. So for us to cite somebody, it takes two people to sign for that, 2 people to give us their name. That can be a citizen calling, and it can be the deputy or the animal control officer that hears it, but there does have to be somebody who's willing to sign that complaint.
Right.
I don't have a
So-
problem with that, but what number do we call it?
So I would encourage you to call the non-emergency number, the 303-441-4444 number. Yes.
You don't have that memorized? I got that memorized.
I'm putting it in
So,
myself.
so if you,
303-441.
44,
Yeah, 4444. That's our non-emergency dispatch.
Thank you.
everybody should know that. It's on every,
Yeah, no, I'm glad we.
every document, yeah, that ever comes out from the town.
From us.
It's listed,
Yeah.
yeah, right. So if someone called and didn't leave their name, you still have that record that you've been called out based on someone not giving 15 times
Yes.
or 5 times
Yes.
to the same place.
You would have
So I
that
think
record.
that's important too, even if they don't want to give their name, the fact that they've been called out 501 times in last year, that seems like a lot.
So, yes,
Yeah.
just remember that's for every
Well,
animal
everything.
complaint. That's
Yeah.
not just the barking dogs. In fact, we'll get to those numbers in a minute, but that's everything from somebody who finds what they think's a rattlesnake in their front yard,
Right,
to a bat in their house, to
right.
a dog running loose in the neighborhood, all of
But you
that.
don't do anything about those things, do you?
And we'll send an animal control officer or a deputy out.
I had a
Yeah,
raccoon
we-
in my house, and they said they'll only come out for, the animal control officer said you only come out for domestic animals. And I said,
What
like,
did they
what?
recommend you do then? That's
They said
that's
call,
news to me.
call
Yeah.
call an animal
pest
pest
control?
control.
Okay.
And I said, but the raccoon, it's 9:00 at night, he's in my house.
In the
you know.
house?
Oh, yeah, twice. I named him Rocky. So, he came regularly trying to get in the house.
Well, quit feeding him.
Well, I didn't, but there was cat food in the house, and they smell cat food, and they'll come into anything. So don't leave any cat food out, or dog food anywhere near them. But that was interesting. I called the non-emergency number and got an animal control officer call me back
Hey.
and said they wouldn't come out because it was a non-domestic animal, so.
Okay, so I
And
apologize.
I
I'll
took
have to-
care of it.
I'll have to look into that then.
But we should be kind of clear what kind of things you can actually do something about and what you can't, because they recommended I call pests.
We
It'd
had
probably
an
be a good
experience
topic
though
for
with that.
Chamberlain and
Yeah,
Mr.
During the
White.
day, there was a raccoon during the day under someone's windows, and actually animal control came out and
That-
took it.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised that,
oh, they did, the Boulder
They did.
County Animal
Yeah,
Control.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, well, that's good.
So,
I
I'll
think
bring
we
that up
should
with
have
Jim
some
and we'll-
consistency here,
Well,
perhaps.
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am, I'll bring that up
Yeah.
with Jim. So this is, you see the numbers, again, there's nothing reported on those top lines. This is because of our computer-aided dispatch, the CAD system,
Mhm.
changing in late 2012. That's why those numbers, but they're fairly consistent over the last couple of years as well. That's just,
Right.
all right. These are the events. This is when we actually deal with like dog bites, any kind of dog bite report, dogs at large, that people are getting either a warning or a summons on. The barking dog complaints that we issue warnings or summonses on as well. So The previous slide is more indicative of the number of animal control calls that we actually get. These are the ones that are actionable, if that makes sense. And you'll see again, the numbers stay fairly consistent from 2013 to 2014 in terms of the animal bites, dogs at large, what we're citing people for versus warnings and that sort. Do you have a question? No? Anybody else?
No, that's good,
Okay.
thank you.
Incident reports. Incident reports are anything that we take a report on that's non-criminal. So the other numbers were criminal. Incident reports are non-crimes. Or like if somebody's intoxicated in public and we don't have any place to take them other than the ARC, mental holds, any kind of dispute that's non-criminal, a civil dispute, family dispute, domestic relationship where there's no crime, that sort of stuff. And those numbers, again, have stayed pretty consistent. And these are all the different things. We're pretty good about keeping consistent in the number of cars we crash. That's the first line on there. But again, nothing really stands out. I think our mental holds have gone up slightly. I think that's indicative of the times that we live in. Yeah, it's the only one that really stood out to me. You guys have any questions about those numbers at all? Okay. Traffic citations. Again, we added a traffic car in 2013. That's where you see the jump in the numbers for that. It's kind of leveled off 2014, and our numbers this year, I don't have the actual numbers, but what I was told is those numbers are actually down, which we believe is indicative of the enforcement and the education we've done over the last couple of years is paying off. And obviously our goal is traffic safety. It's not to write tickets, but to gain compliance, so.
That may be another reason why it went down a little bit, because you're trying to get the balance of what is for traffic safety versus just writing a ticket for everybody who speeds.
Yeah, I think we're not making as many
Yeah.
stops either.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am. So these are the numbers. For some reason, the speed violations, you'll see that there's actually 4 of them
Right.
on there. 3 of them are all, actually the top 2 are for speeding 10 to 19 over. Okay. Then the next one, the next speeding violation down about halfway down the page is for 20 and over. And then there's that state one, the 42 traffic, third from the bottom. That's actually a state charge that we might charge if somebody didn't have insurance, for example. These are the locations where these are taking place, and they color-coded them so you can see some of those locations, it's how it was entered into the system. They're the same location. But this is actually hard for me to read from here, but there's McCaslin in Indiana, and then there's McCaslin Drive in Indiana. So those 3 red ones, for example, are all the same location. It's just how they were entered into the system. Jim Chamberlain told me that he's talked to Jody, the typist who enters all those into our system, to standardize regardless of what the deputy writes. We'll put this, we know the location so we can enter that into our reports accurately, so we won't have these multiple lines. Same thing with Rock Creek Parkway and Honey Creek. You'll see that there's 3 different lines there. Again, it's how it was entered into the computer system and that data mined from it. Traffic accidents have stayed fairly consistent the last 2 years, just over 250.
Consistently high.
What's that?
Consistently high.
They're primarily property damage accidents where nobody's injured. That's over 140 of those. And then there's some injury crashes in there. Again, the numbers, because we changed our reporting system, you'll see that there's numbers on the top and then the numbers down below it.
So can you speak to 2015? What's happening with accidents, particularly out here?
I'm sorry, I can't. I didn't ask that question before I came here. I can get that information for you, though.
It'll be interesting to see after the
After they
divergent
get
diamonds
this-
and everything gets fixed
Right.
up and all that, what 2016 looks like.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that'll be my responsibility, right? So those
Yeah.
numbers will go down. Those numbers will go down. Are there any
Because
questions?
you're here? Oh, no, because we're done with construction.
Are there any questions on
Very
that?
fortuitous for you.
Yes, yeah, there are some really good things coming ahead. Are there any questions on the locations? Again, the ones that are similar colors, yellow and red, are the same location, they were just entered in differently into the computer system?
What is that 190 over there? And where did that? See?
Um,
Oh, we're on the different one, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No. I was trying to figure out traffic citations, there's 190 of us, but that's okay. It's not
Do you-
important. It was in 2014, I don't really think we need to go back and dissect it.
Okay.
We're more interested, like I said, going forward, you know,
Yes,
how
ma'am.
we do.
Yes.
I'm more interested going forward. Okay?
Just to refresh everybody's memory, we have one detective assigned to Superior that handles the calls down here that are the more serious ones. However, one of the benefits, and we'll talk about in a minute too, is when we do have something more major, you get more than just that one detective to help out. These are the calls that have been assigned to detectives. It's dropped down slightly over the last couple of years. I think part of that is that if we get an example of like vehicles being broken into in the night, a lot of times we're taking individual reports for every single car that's broken into. So if we had 5 cars broken in, we would have taken 5 reports. But when we can demonstrate that they were all the same criminal incident, we're documenting them all under one report. I think that's partly what you're seeing here in these numbers being reduced.
I'd be interested how many of those cases assigned to detectives were successfully resolved.
You know what? And I wanted to ask the same thing, and I apologize I didn't get that number before I came here.
Because I think this one assigned to Superior is not a good thing, actually, from personal experience. I think that detectives whoever has these cases has a huge caseload. That's my concern.
I can get the clearance rates.
Huh?
I can get the clearance rates, what we call our clearance rates,
Mhm.
for how many of those cases actually get solved and closed out.
Okay.
And maybe how that compares to other
Other jurisdictions.
other detectives. I mean, and I mean to Sandy's point, you know, is the Superior detective overloaded, or is their clearance rate standard with others?
So,
And-
right, so it's my understanding it's not just one single detective that handles everything.
That's correct. yeah.
We've got,
Right.
you pay for one detective, but you get the resources of the entire detective. So if one detective's starting to get a number of cases and he's getting bogged down, those cases go to another detective, which keeps that fresh. You're not getting them all just to one individual. Does that make sense?
Well, and you've got certain ones
There's certain
kind of
ones that
specialize
deal
in vehicles,
that deal
certain
with
Yeah.
property
domestics,
crimes,
that
person
sort of
crimes, domestic
yeah.
violence, right. So it
Yeah.
doesn't all go to
So it's not
one
one person
individual
doing all of it,
detective. Correct.
Right.
Does that make sense?
And that's what I
Yeah.
remember from Sergeant Chamberlain telling us too, that that's just one that's been assigned to
Yeah.
us, but we get many more resources.
My personal
available-
experience
available.
doesn't jibe with what you just said, but I'll assume the whole system experience does. So I'll talk to you offline.
Okay. And remember,
New.
yes, all right.
Not yet, he's not even new.
So this is a comparison of what Superior pays for the sheriff's office compared to the other municipalities of similar sizes. And in the big numbers, if you jump down to the number of deputies per 1,000 residents, is lower than Erie, Louisville, and Lafayette. Supervisors is way down, that number's way down, and the detectives as well. Do you have any questions about those numbers?
They all have their own law enforcement.
They do.
Police
They do.
force. So it's kind of comparing apples and cranberries, but, you know, so that's a little.
The advantage that you have, of course, is that those are the number of bodies that you pay for.
Right.
But if there's a major crime down here, or we're getting hit with vehicle trespasses, for example, and we need to put together a task force of deputies, we can do that from our entire resources versus just the number that they have. So if Erie was having a similar problem, they only have that many officers to pull from. We have the entire sheriff's office to pull from.
Good.
Are there any other questions, anything else I can answer?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that is a positive comment that I love to see when the officers drive around the neighborhoods and through the neighborhoods And I see that occasionally in mine, and we always wave, whoever goes by. But I like to see it because it shows that that you're traveling through the neighborhood, not just picking people up, but
Right.
and you're not there only when there's a call or emergency. And I find that in Superior and Louisville, I see police officers driving through the communities, but I don't see it in some of these other locations. And I go there quite a bit because I have family members that live in Erie and Lafayette. But I like that, that it's not just when the lights are flashing red that you come onto a street. It's, they keep patrolling around
It's
or driving
important that
through.
they do that and they know
Yeah.
what's the norm, so
Right.
they can identify what's out of the norm.
Right.
This might be a segue to our judge shortly, but when we have court, how much time do your deputies end up having to spend at court?
I can't answer that question, I'm
Okay.
sorry. I can talk to Jim and find out, but I don't know the answer to that.
Just a request, if it hasn't been asked of you guys yet. A couple of years ago, the sheriff's office used to post a patrol car at the intersection of Indiana and El Dorado Drive or El Dorado Circle, because a lot of the residents will do, I guess, a California stop and not stop all the way and go through there, and that is a school zone, real busy in the morning. It's not patrolled by a crossing guard, so perhaps if we could have a patrol car sit there sometime, over the next month or so.
Okay.
By Superior Elementary, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I sent Chamberlain the message on that
Okay.
already, and he's added it to the list.
Okay.
So, okay, speaking of the judge, we should get on to the judge.
Yes.
Thank
Thank you, Lance, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Nice job.
So, board appointed Judge Thrower last year. He's had made some changes to the court, and the board expressed some interest in receiving periodic reports from the judge about the municipal court operations. So he's graciously come down tonight and is going to speak to the board and answer any questions you have.
I didn't have far to drive.
Good
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. I'm David Thrower. I'm the municipal judge here, have been for a year. I provided you with a sort of breezy overview of the past year and some changes that I made after taking over from Ron Miller, who was the only other judge we've ever had here in town. So I've been on the bench just over a year, and even prior to my appointment, I was your prosecutor for 13 years. And Judge Miller and I had conversations about how busy the court was getting and how we were cramming into one day 100 arraignments and between 2 and 6 trials sometimes. And it wasn't necessarily overtaxing the court, but it was perhaps not the best way to serve defendants and make sure they understood they were being heard. So after I was on the bench for a couple of times and dealing with a fairly high volume, in concert with some conversations I had with the town manager, we decided to split the court date up a little bit differently than we had in the past. In the past, we basically had a morning arraignment session for code violations. Those are criminal violations. We had an afternoon arraignment session that was set aside for traffic, and then we had trials. I've changed that. We still do code in the morning. We still do traffic in the afternoon, but I've added a juvenile docket at 3 o'clock. I wanted to do that for a number of reasons. One, it relieved some of the pressure on the other 2 dockets. But it also gave me an opportunity as a judge to interact more directly with juvenile defendants, something we hadn't been able to do, at least the judge hadn't been able to do before. As the prosecutor I could, because I met with them back there. I would say of all the changes that I've made, that's the one I think was the most important. It has given me an opportunity. Our juvenile dockets range between, on the low end, maybe 5, and on the high end, I think we had 15 once, and many of those 15 were folks that were caught in superior liquors. But in any event, by splitting it up that way, I do feel that I've had better interaction with juvenile defendants, which I think is super important. When I started as an attorney, we had a magistrate in Boulder County named T.J. Cole, who I knew and practiced before. And he really took the juvenile docket to heart and did the same sorts of things. And I've always thought of TJ when I'm on the bench with juvenile defendants. So that's probably the most significant change. In order to make all that work, we've added a court date, and it's generally the day following our arraignment day. And that date is set aside for trials, and that's all we do on that day. We don't always have to use that date, because very often there are no trials because we plea bargain, or the city attorney's or town attorney's office plea bargains most cases as they do in all courts. The lion's share of things get disposed of without going to trial. But I have sat on the bench, and I tried to remember all of them, and I could remember most of them for 6 trials. Trustee Pennington remarked that I didn't have any more gray hair since I met her last year. I have a few. The first 2 trials were with attorneys on the other side. In all the 13 years I prosecuted here, I think we had attorneys on the other side of the prosecutor maybe 3 or 4 times. So it was a little different. But we got through it just fine. I joined the Colorado Municipal Judges Association as soon as I was appointed by this board. I have attended 3 of their statewide conferences. I've become active in that organization. There's increased focus on municipal courts by a lot of groups right now. And networking with other judges, particularly in this area, I think is extremely important. They have nominated me to go on their board of directors and serve as an officer, which I intend to do. I have gotten very much out of that organization. I'm proud to represent the town of Superior with that organization. That's essentially a recap of the memo that I provided to you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Yes, ma'am.
One, I applaud the focus on juveniles. I personally, to the dismay of my 3 sons, made them come to court for any traffic offense, et cetera, et cetera. And I think they became much more sensitive to getting those tickets. But compassion and personal accountability from the judge, I think, sets the kids in the right direction. So I really appreciate that you have focused on that. The other thing is we decriminalized something or other a month or 2 back at your recommendation. Can you weren't here at the time. Can you speak to the need for that?
No, and I have to be kind of careful because we have separation of powers. You all are the legislative branch, I'm the judicial branch.
Right.
Most municipalities have decriminalized their traffic infractions. And the reason that's an issue or can be an issue is if you do not decriminalize your traffic infractions, you do not have as many opportunities with the Department of Motor Vehicles, for example, to deal with people who fail to appear, deal with people who fail to pay, things like that. If we do not decriminalize traffic and somebody fails to show up on a traffic ticket, my only correct recourse was to issue a warrant for their arrest and to bring them before the court. I'm not sure that that's what we want to be doing on traffic cases. When you've decriminalized, you can turn those failures to appear to the Department of Motor Vehicles. And they basically say, you failed to appear in the Superior Municipal Court, here's the fine you must pay, or you will lose your license. It's a civil matter at that point. And it was for that reason that, it is for that reason that many municipalities decriminalize their traffic. Now, that doesn't apply to certain traffic crimes. But to the lion's share of cases we see in here, it does apply. And I think, the other potential issue you could have is you could start having lots of jury trials on traffic cases, which is extraordinarily expensive. And that is sort of the genesis for that conversation.
So have you felt any impact from that decision yet?
No, because as a practical matter, my predecessor treated most cases as decriminalized anyway because the maximum fine years ago was $499, which is the cutoff, or arguably the cutoff, for when something becomes criminal. So I haven't seen any change in the number of cases that come before me, the number of people that mail things in. It's remained fairly constant.
I also want to comment about the creating a Boulder County Municipal Judges Group. I think that's a fascinating and great idea, because I find that talking with other like associates, you can really gain a lot of knowledge and be more creative, to initiate some things that are important for the municipal government.
I reached out to Judge Cook in Boulder. We had lunch several months ago. I have spent a great deal of time with Judge Joss, who is the judge in Louisville. And that's really interesting, actually, to get his perspective. We're sort of sister municipalities, if you will, and how he handles things and how we handle things and the commonality of issues we see. And being a judge in a town is a very isolating feeling and position. So to the extent I can make people in the same position, it just makes sense. You asked a question, Trustee Sorelli, before about police officers and how much time they spend in court.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I can tell you that in my 13 years as a prosecutor and my 1 year as a judge, I see the same officers for trial. I mean, there's a pretty consistent identity of officers that are here. We've had 6 trials. I imagine there was one officer that appeared on probably 4 of those, and that's an hour a month for that officer. And then we also have court security, and that officer is provided by the sheriff's office, and they're here with us all day.
This is not a legal question, but it's more a personal question. What have you enjoyed the most being a judge for the last year?
The flippant answer to that, and I'll tell you a funny story, and I'll make it brief. The fit of my robe, and I say that in jest. When my first month as a judge, we had ordered a robe, but it didn't arrive in time. Judge Miller was 6'4". I am not 6'4", so we stapled the hem up and made it work. What have I enjoyed? What I've enjoyed about being the judge the most is sort of navigating that place between a finder of fact and imposing consequences. It's very interesting, that dichotomy. Making sure that defendants' rights are protected, making sure that the town's rights are protected to the extent that that's appropriate. But then coming up with a creative solution that will encourage people to obey the law. I get that more with defendants that are juveniles and defendants that have committed crimes, not necessarily traffic infractions. Traffic infractions is the fines there are part of the code. They're part of the fine schedule that I've created. But that's been really interesting to me. And just interacting with people that are in my community has been great. And I remember, I think you asked me the question when you interviewed me if I was worried about being the judge and living here. Mm-hmm. So far, so good. No problems.
Quick comment. I also like how you separated the juvenile sessions from the adult sessions, but I mostly appreciate how you've taken ownership of this position and just run with it and done the right things to make this better. So thank you very much for your hard work in just 1 year.
It's been my pleasure. It's a true honor to serve my community in this position and to serve you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Anything
much.
else?
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Question? Did you have something else? Okay. Okay, review of the October 26th meeting. Anybody have any questions or?
Yeah, so for the work session, we've sent out the RFP for trash services. So we'll hopefully have those back and get some direction from the board as far as the exact type of services you'd like, and narrow down to one of the providers so we could start working with them on hammering out an agreement. And then during the regular meeting, I have the youth leadership work plan. I think they're ready to go with that. Town center update, purchase and sale agreement with the group that's going to purchase the lot 1, block 1 in the town center, and then the 2016 budget. That's what I have currently. I
Big
have
meeting.
Huh?
Big meeting.
Yeah. I have been speaking with the new owners of Rock Creek Village. They want to do a tenant sign at the corner of the west entrance at Colton, just as, you know, you take that to get into Community Park as well.
West entrance?
The west entrance.
The west entrance
Of Colton.
off of Colton.
Down by the park.
Down by the park, yes.
Don't they already have another sign there
I thought
that's?
they were focusing
They have a
on the
leasing
east
sign up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this would be a monument tenant sign that they'd like to place up.
Oh, yeah.
And it'd be a licensing agreement with the town, since that's our property. The thing that they've come back to me with is, I told them that we were leaning towards a tenant monument sign, but they would like to have a digital sign as part of that sign, and then, you know, the town could use some of it for announcing events and stuff, but the sign gets to be quite tall, so we're working with them on that. And I might have them come and do a concept plan with you and just get your feedback on.
I'm not a big fan of digital signs.
Yeah. That's what I told them, so, that, you know, we don't have a lot in town, so, I mean, so that's what that might be something that gets added to that agenda.
Is it my imagination, or had we been talking about the corner at the east corner, Rock Creek Parkway in
And Colton, yes.
That
That's
was-
what we had been talking of, but you're talking about when you turn in, when you're going east.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's the location they've identified.
I have a question about, I know you've got Town Center update on there, and so I'd be very interested in pushing as soon as possible, getting any changes that are being proposed by the developer for the Town Center, so that we get that earlier. Not waiting to the last meeting in December to
Right.
have to review, because we may not be able to get that all done in time to meet the December 31st deadline
Yeah.
of their FDPs.
We have received their submittal for the plan development amendment, number 3. This would be number 3. So my staff has reviewed it. We're sending comments back to them tomorrow. And it just depends if they can get resubmittal to us, you know, within the next week, and it's addressed all of our comments, we can start scheduling it for planning commission and the town board. So it's just a matter of if they get back to us in a timely manner and if all the comments have been addressed, so.
It's really to their benefit to get back to us quickly,
Yeah,
because they're running out of time.
Right,
You
yeah.
know?
Well,
I
and
agree.
that would have to come forward even if the PD's not ready, the amendment. It would have to
Mhm.
come forward separately.
But Rita, you're talking if they wish to seek an extension, we don't want it to be at the last minute when we
Right,
have no other
exactly.
alternative.
You know, because December 31st is the date that
Right.
they're supposed to be
So
done
I
with their
agree, that
FDPs.
needs to come forth in November.
Well,
Yeah.
we have one meeting in December on the
Right.
calendar.
Right.
So it can't be
Yeah.
that
Only one in
meeting.
November too, because the other one is Thanksgiving.
No, we still have it.
Well,
Yeah.
we do have two, well, that's a good point. We do have two on the calendar. I mean, there's two on the calendar for November.
Mhm.
One is, well, the second one is Thanksgiving week, so do we want to go ahead with that, or do we not want to?
And-
Currently, it's scheduled unless I hear we
And I know I'll be
don't have,
down
right.
for that.
I'm here.
I'm here.
I'm here.
Yeah, we're here too.
Yeah.
And
So-
probably should leave that on, just
I
given.
think so, too,
Given
because we're
the,
running out
given
of-
the building volume of, of things coming. Yeah. Okay.
And there's one meeting in December.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, the 28th is not going to be a meeting, is it?
I think the 13th or something is the only meeting.
Yeah, there's 2 meetings
In
each
December.
year that the board had decided ahead of time that, the spring break in March and December, the second.
Well, we also did a, we also did a July.
Oh,
We
in
took
July,
off in
that's
July.
right, 3 meetings. So.
Yep. Okay, let's take a short break, and we'll be back in 3 minutes.
Short break, all right. Pressure's on.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees and the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 Board of Directors for October 12th, 2015. Phyllis, could we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Cliff Folsom.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Deborah Williams.
Here.
Trustees Joe Cirelli.
Here.
Rita Dozell.
Here.
Elia Gagoris.
Here.
Chris Hansen.
Here.
Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Town Manager Matt Mackey.
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Town Clerk Bosser.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda. If someone would like to make a motion for the approval of the agenda, Mayor Pro Tem Williams. Motion, second by Trustee Hansen. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you. Reports, questions, and issues. Who'd like to start?
I'm quick.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Williams, and then Trustee Hansen.
I had a First Fridays, the first Friday of October, and I had some new people that came. It was kind of a very robust discussion on many different topics, so it was a lot of fun, and I think I'll continue. And I just want to thank everyone that comes regularly and sporadically and drops in. It's a great little informal forum for residents to come by and ask questions and get information and feedback. And then I also attended a US 36 MCC, Mayor's Commissioners Coalition in Broomfield, with the mayor, and that was a good meeting. Nothing big to report, but I'll let you do that since that's your bailiwick.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, Trustee Hansen.
Yep. Last week, I met with a few residents in Original Town, and some of the questions had come up that we've been talking about recently about some of the activity in Original Town, specifically this straightening of the road there and the potential median. But some other things came up that I just didn't have the answers to, and I thought, I wondered if the Traffic and Safety Committee had actually met recently or any time, maybe discussed some of the issues in Original Town with traffic patterns. Some of the things that were of interest to these residents were, one, the straightening of Coal Creek Drive and the median, if that's something that maybe the Traffic and Safety Committee might discuss. Also, traffic and potential future traffic at the intersection of Coal Creek Drive and 4th Avenue is a big concern. Traffic and parking concerns in the area of new homes on Maple Street. All those new homes there potentially could cause some parking issues. And then the big picture alternative plans potentially for traffic coming off McCaslin going down Coal Creek. Some requests have been made that possibly that's either closed off or make it one way or something like that. And I certainly couldn't answer that, and I'm not sure if that's something that your committee has ever discussed or would be interested in discussing.
We're interested in discussing everything if it's in our bailiwick. But we do need to have a meeting.
Yeah.
We haven't had one in a while.
So.
Yeah, we need to set up a, yeah.
My staff has we're aware of these issues that
Right.
you mentioned, and we identified a whole list of potential items to look at as far as the traffic circulation in Original Town, in and around Original Town. I've asked Alex to put together some scope of services and contact 3 or 4 traffic consultant companies that could do this study for the town, and I would bring that back before the board to consider approving that agreement. And then this company would do that study for us, identify a list of possible mitigations and then we'd take that to the Traffic and Safety Committee, invite residents to come down, and then eventually come back to the board for consideration of some possible mitigation items to do.
Okay.
So we're working on this. I'm hoping to have something in November for the board to consider as far as an agreement, and start the study, and start to work towards at least exploring some options.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Okay. Trustee Dozell.
Just to follow up on what Chris was saying, that I attended Deborah's first Friday meeting, and one of the residents suggested a group of citizens, residents get together, I hate the word citizen, residents get together and talk about traffic issues or potential changes, or maybe ahead of some of these, not the great big public works projects, but the smaller ones, and they had suggested a new committee, but we were thinking about it, and I think I mentioned this to you, Matt, too. Is there a way that we might change the kind of the format or the makeup of the Traffic and Safety Committee to regularly include residents as part of that group, to take on some of these questions, all those questions that came up in your meeting, Chris? So that's one thing that they asked, this resident asked, that we consider as a board. Do we want to, what would a committee look like that would take on some of these questions and on a regular, ongoing basis? So I think we need to put that into your thought process as you work through your staff.
It's something I thought, when you brought it up, could be a possible retreat.
Okay. And that's an excellent idea,
Well,
too. We could talk some more about that at
And
the
also,
retreat.
that resident and I talked about that the Traffic and Safety Committee needs to meet more often or more regularly.
Right.
In order to kind of discuss a lot of these issues that have been coming forward.
Maybe if we define it better,
Yeah,
and
I
what the
think that
role
would-
is,
Yep.
it might, because it's a little bit of an odd duckling compared to other committees
is.
that we have,
And in the past, when we've had those meetings, one of us or all three of us will contact residents if we're talking about an issue in their area.
Mhm.
And we usually have a pretty full audience. So it's great participation and it's pretty informal. So we at least, we have that in place. We just need to have a formal, regular meeting occur.
Right. Okay, that's a great topic then. I think let's add that to the retreat and then see what we could do about that to define that. And then the other things that I attended were really more, one was a fun activity, which is the HOA Oktoberfest was great. The weather was beautiful. And the crowd was great, and it was great to see the neighbors and friends. But also, Matt, thank you for the Boulder Valley Ice building tour. It was very interesting as well. So, and then one thing I wanted to bring up about that, we talked about this, Matt, the front of the building is different from what was approved because of the fact that there are two pieces of the building that aren't being built right now. One is the medical office building, which was originally on there, and the other is that place where there was potentially being a children's splash, a kiddie splash pool area. So the front of the building is going to look a little different. And as we talk about changes to FDPs that have been approved, I think we should do a better job of being apprised and maybe understanding. I mean, I'm sure you and your staff know what's going on, but the building's going to look different than what the picture looks like that's hanging on the wall out there.
And the medical office building developer needs to come forward with a FDP amendment because they're adding a parking garage, and we thought we would have that by now.
And detaching, they've detached
Right,
from the
exactly.
building.
So, yeah, that was part of the problem.
Mhm.
I thought it would be before it already, but
Right.
it hasn't. There's been delays, and so yeah, we can do that.
It's more of a, just as we work through this next couple of years, as we have a lot of building going on, let's keep on top of what's not going the way we approved things. Not that it's always an issue, but we have a lot of situations out there where FDPs were approved, and now we're doing something outside of them, or bigger or less than, and we just need to keep on top of those and make decisions about that, or take action appropriately based on various ones. And that, that's all the excavation that's going on. There's some changes that happen from what was approved, and then also the building that's there, Boulder Valley Ice. And as we go forward, let's just make sure we're ahead of and on top of the changes and see if we need to have new amendments or new approvals. In this case, we know we do, but I just wanted the front of the building looks different on this the north side. The north half will look different than what's on the picture out there. And not saying that have a problem with that. I just think that we should know about that kind
Well,
of thing.
and Bluetooth's, the developer, is still working to try to get that piece built.
Right.
He's meeting with the baseball folks, Belmont,
Mhm.
and working with their financing company, bank. He's still working.
Right, and then we figured, I found that out when I was meeting for my lunch with you, because he was meeting there too. So it was, I wasn't aware that
Wait.
piece wasn't being built.
Are you saying there's a piece or a component of the building, a section of the building that is not being built that was originally approved?
It hasn't been decided yet.
What hasn't been decided?
He's, like I said, he's still working with that group to build that piece.
But structurally, it's not going up right now.
If you remember, when we were talking about, earlier in the year, we were talking about whether the town wanted to partner with them to build that recreation piece.
Right.
And we decided not to, and he said, at that time, he wasn't sure he would be able to build that portion of the building. And then this other group came in, he's been working with them. They started the foundation on Impact Sports. That started a couple weeks ago, so that piece is going up. So he's still working with the group to have that done.
But the short answer is, there's portions of the Boulder Valley Ice Building separate from the medical office building that are not being built right now, not going up vertically because of those. Now, I'm not saying that's a problem. I'm just saying that the first time I realized when we got up close and personal to the building, and I said, where's this piece that was supposed to be
Well,
here?
and I asked the same question on the tour, and the answer I got was, it sounded like it's coming. Yes, it's not being built right now, but it's coming. And, there was not a definitive answer on, we're going to start on X date, but my impression was it would be getting done in conjunction with the rest of the building getting done. I mean, there's a lot to be done on that building out there still. So the question of, will it be a finished product without that chunk? I don't know that any of us know the answer to that.
And again, I'm not asking that question as much as I think we need to be on top of, as the project goes along, that we know what's happening and what isn't happening according to what we approved. We approved something.
But if it's not happening today, but it happens next month, is it not happening, or does it matter?
Well, I think what is it, is there a date on that FDP? I don't know. I was surprised when I got up there and I thought, oh, now I know why it looks different, because there's a whole chunk of the building that's not there. Yeah.
Okay, let's
move on.
Let's move on to
I though think she raises a great point. If this turns out different from the FDP eventually, shouldn't we have approved that difference as an amendment? And so if it happens slowly, what are our protections here?
So, an FDP amendment is coming forward.
For the medical
Thought we would've
office
had it by
building?
now. It'll include changes to the medical office, but also any changes to the ICE facility as well.
Okay.
Well,
Aren't those two separate FDPs?
It all started as one big
They're
one.
all one right now, but it'll be two.
Okay, who's up for
Right.
announcement? Okay, trustee Sorrell.
Very briefly, there was a meeting of the Resource Conservation Committee last week that I was unable to attend, and they did not have a quorum either, so they didn't do any business. They did discuss, I'm getting from notes from Deputy Toth that they are looking to put up a flyer at the Guardian Storage to help recruit for new members to the committee. And they're going to use that flyer. There is a document shredding event scheduled between October 26th and November 13th at Guardian Storage. And they hope to have the flyers up. And they're also going to send flyers out to people they know that might be interested in in the committee, trying to spread the word some about the committee.
You know, another good place for a flyer would be the yard waste drop-off, because those are
If it doesn't rain.
environmentally inclined people
Yeah.
that visit there, so that
Yeah.
might be a good place to recruit members.
So that's all I have.
Okay. Trustee Dozell,
I just did all mine.
thank you.
But you want me to go again?
I couldn't remember if those were your anyway. Okay, how about Trustee Pennington?
Regarding population of advisory committees, I sort of like it the way we've been doing it, which is town-sponsored, to try to get a wide, diverse assortment of residents applying for these spots. I think we've had success with it. I don't mind the individual thing, but I don't want to take 2 steps backward with that as well.
Well, I don't see it as a step backwards, just additional. They're not.
Right, I got you.
They're,
Okay.
they're obviously short in membership.
As we discussed some unique original town issues, I do also want to throw on the list to make sure it's not been forgotten, the discussion of that vacated part of Maple Street by the Arsenault properties. There was some conversation that occurred somewhere about potentially doing something to establish our boundary there. So I'd like to make sure that is included in that discussion. And then, Matt, when it's your turn, I'd like to know what the next steps are regarding the library visioning that was started last meeting with that work session topic. I don't want to lose the momentum from that conversation, you know. And then on the public arts working group, a member of that came to Deborah's coffee, and I do think we've got to get that up to size, get the frequency of meetings up to par with our other committees. I know it's not an advisory committee yet, but it needs to have some standardization in terms of size, meetings, and the place of the meetings, and the time of the meetings. So I'd like to see that.
Sounds like you would like it to be established as a committee?
Well, I would like it to grow into a committee if, in fact, there's enough of a desire by the board and the town to do that. But if we don't give it some level of seriousness, how will we ever know if it can be a serious committee? So right now, it seems very ad hoc to me. And I personally think it was a good thing to have that event canceled, because I don't like events held just because there's money in the budget to hold something. Not that that was precisely that. But I think my personal bias is that there is a need for a public arts visioning group, and that it could really make a material difference to this town. So I'd like us to set the framework in place that we grow this group. And if you feel that that means we should start at the advisory committee level, I'd like to discuss that at the retreat to see if there's enough support for that idea. And that is all.
Okay. Trustee Gruvers?
So I was under the weather when the Superior Youth Leadership Council met, so I called in and stayed on the phone for an hour and a half, and I got very little out of it other than there were a lot of laughter. They were having a lot of fun. So Tori, God bless her, took some notes, so I'm going to read some of the notes. The council approved the work plan to be reviewed and approved by this board on the 26th. And they also reviewed the policies and procedures that were listed in Resolution 37, approved by the town board, which had to do with the attendance policy issues and the term limits. Number 3, the treats for troops, the community project. The council will be emailing Superior Elementary, Monarch K through 8, El Dorado K through 8 to host drop-off boxes for donations. Members will also write an announcement to be made at the high schools encouraging peers to go trick-or-treating on Halloween, specifically for treats for troops. And they will sort out the candy on the November 4th meeting, which is our next meeting. They also wrote a letter in support of the GOCO grant for the proposed 12-acre park located next to El Dorado K through 8. And I guess I really like that they're taking initiative in a lot of different areas. It's, you know, on their own. It's really great.
Okay.
And the last thing was that the council will host a canned food drive and Toys for Tots campaign in conjunction with a Count the Lights event across the street. And as a giveaway to kind of incentivize the donations, there will be a drawing for a Tutti Frutti and a Chick-fil-A gift card. And council members will help distribute the food and drinks throughout the event in addition to running the donation drop-off booth. So very active, very excited. I think we're getting some great new members. So it's really both a pleasure and an honor to be in their presence, honestly. It bodes well for this town. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. All right, I'll do my announcements. Morning of October 1st, went to the Mayors and Commissioners Coalition meeting in Broomfield with Mayor Pro Tem Williams. There was discussion about quiet zone on the railroads. Doesn't really affect Superior, but we were part of that discussion. Lobbyists, there was discussion about the group hiring state lobbyists. Currently, we just pay for federal lobbyists, and the feeling of the group was that it might be advantageous to have some state lobbyist coverage as well, so that discussion's ongoing. And discussed membership in the Mayors and Commissioners group. This year, they invited Erie, Adams County, and Jefferson County to be part of the membership, and Erie's been coming, as well as Adams County. Haven't seen much of Jefferson County, so that's still kind of a work in progress as well. The night of October 1st, I went to Denver and took part in the telephone town hall that CDOT and HTPE held for callers to comment on the rate structure for Phase 2 of US 36, and most of the callers had more questions about transponders, lane usage, and those sorts of questions, and seemed to be less concerned about the actual toll rates. And I think that's because Phase 1 has already been open. You can see the prices up on the displays already, and there was less discussion about that. On the 6th, I went to the 36 Commuting Solutions meeting in Broomfield, and there was also another update on the US 36 Phase 1 performance, and talked about the Phase 2 scheduling, and there's a transportation legislative review by Representative Max Tyler. On October 7th, I went to the Metro Mayors meeting in Denver, and there was a robust discussion about the Science and Cultural District funding discussion, and the SCFD committee has proposed one funding structure, and another group has come forward saying, well, we'd like to see a different funding structure. This goes to whatever structure is settled on, goes to the state legislature, who then approves it to be put on the 2016 ballot. This is the group that there's a tax that we all pay to fund everything from the arts to the zoo. A to Z is what they call it. And the wide range of thought is that it's a very beneficial tax, and these institutions have benefited from it greatly. The ongoing discussion is kind of how do you cut up that pie of money? And anytime you get a big group of money, you get lots of discussions about that. So anyway, I think it was good to have this group before Metro Mayors, and the consensus among the mayors that were in attendance was, please get this figured out before you send it to the state legislature, because when you send things there, they don't always come out the way you want them to. So please get it figured out. We all want this to pass. There was also Excel Energy was there giving, the president of Excel was there giving a presentation on some of their new initiatives, and they stuck around afterwards to ask any questions specific communities have, and I stuck around to let them know about some street light issues we had, some street lights that were on during the day that should be off, and off at night and should be on, and also the issues we've had with the street light poles that are kind of custom to our community, and when they get run over, it takes months and months. And they have this problem in many other communities, and so we're not unique in dealing with that problem, but we're talking with them about some ways to hopefully get that improved. On October 8th, I went here to Town Hall. The Colorado Department of Transportation Commissioner Barry was here to have kind of a little roundtable discussion with elected officials, and there was discussion about the diverging diamond interchange and express lanes, and it was just good to interact in person with a CDOT commissioner. On the 9th, last Friday, I went to Buckley Air Force Base for an amazing tour arranged by the Aurora Mayor and Metro Mayors, and learned all kind of interesting things about Buckley Air Force Base. There's about 13,000 people, about the size of Superior, working at Buckley Air Force Base. They have about $1 billion economic impact to the region. They do missile defense for the United States. They have an Air National Guard with 2 jets ready to go at a moment's notice, 24/7, Army helicopter base, and a bunch of national intelligence functions going on that campus as well. So it's quite a place, and going around with the colonels to see all of this was quite impressive. Then to lighten things up, the next day I went to the Oktoberfest and had a great time with the Nerf Dart event, and great job to town staff, Allison and Tori, for getting that event. She said it was sold out and a great success, and just great to have more offerings for families and kids, and so great job on getting that together. A couple of upcoming announcements to make sure is on everyone's radar. Next weekend, the Diverging Diamond is coming, and the McCaslin Bridge will be closed the 16th through the early morning hours of the 19th, potentially open sooner if they get it done sooner. But the bridge will be closed, but the ramps will be open. So you can get off, stay here in Superior. You don't have to go to Louisville over that weekend. Or you can go the back way. So there'll be plenty of signage up for people getting around the detours. October 22nd, 6 p.m. here at Town Hall is the Advisory Committee Open House. So if anyone's interested in joining our advisory committees, come by and check that out. And last Christmas, or holiday season, if you all recall, we participated in the Metro-wide Sock It To 'Em campaign. This is a donation collection for new pairs of socks, the #1 needed item for the homeless. And we had a very good collection point here, and we incorporated it into the stocking run, and a lot of runners donated socks. And so if you wanted to also let the Youth Advisory Council, let the Youth Leadership Council know about that as well, that might be a good idea to have a sock bin at the Light the Truck event as well. So that'd be a great way to incorporate that. Okay, that's all my announcements.
Could I interject a little about the XL and the light poles?
Yes.
Maybe we could communicate with them about not doing the repairs at midnight outside of people's homes. Just, that was my experience. And
Was
they
it
didn't
a-
fix the light pole either. They just made a lot of noise, and,
It was on a light pole.
yeah.
Don't we have something in our code that prevents?
Not
any kind of
Excel.
work? Really? They're above the law?
Well, pretty much, yes. I'll just say it like that.
Suffice to say, I had a very unhappy wife.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. Town manager.
The one issue I was going to mention, which you already did, was the closure of the McCaslin Bridge this weekend, starting Friday at 9, lasting the entire weekend. So,
Can I ask you, will Marshall intersection and McCaslin be open?
it will. Yep.
Okay, and there will be,
There'll be restrictions because if you're going eastbound on Marshall, turning onto northbound McCaslin, you'll only be able to turn right onto US 36. You won't be able to go through the bridge or turn left onto US 36. So there'll be
if
lane
Boulder,
restrictions, right?
You need to take
Marshall.
Marshall Road. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep. Yep.
all right.
And then if you need to get over to Louisville, 88th is a good alternative, or Interlochen. Yep. If you need to head north, so yeah. And we'll, like you mentioned, we'll have plenty of
There is
information
a-
going out to residents.
There is
so.
a CU football game Saturday night,
know.
and
I know.
so I guess you'll either go South Boulder Road or Marshall to get
All
to
right,
CU.
Highway 128 to 93, or, yeah.
Or stay home and watch it.
Well, if you have tickets, it's not a real good option.
You can do right turns off and onto
Yeah.
Right,
any
that's
enters-
correct.
onto 36.
Yep.
So you have to
So
think about
coming
that.
from
You can turn
Louisville?
right turn on and off.
You can go around to
You can go
Louisville.
around to Louisville, and then you could go right into,
Right.
onto 36.
So let's say you're in Louisville. Microphone. And you, oh, I'm sorry. Let's say you're in Louisville and you want to get to Target. What do you have to do?
88th or
Okay.
Interlochen would be your two choices.
Oh, so you really, okay.
Yeah.
88th is going to be busy.
And if you want to get to Boulder, you do have the free ride.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
From,
If you're
Louis-
coming
from
from
Louisville.
Louisville.
Right,
From
yes.
Louisville.
That's correct.
Right turns on and off of 36.
That's it.
That's
That's it.
Could
that's
drive
all
to
you can,
Denver and come
that's the
back.
only thing you can
Okay.
do.
It'll be done before we know it. It'll be open
All
and
right, good
nice.
to know.
Positive.
Could be
all
a
positive.
painful weekend.
No,
Yes.
it's
Nah,
gonna be
just
good.
don't go there.
It's gonna be good.
Go there.
It isn't that big a deal.
You have to get to
Focus.
Boulder.
Focus
Can't
on the
go to
positive.
Louisville.
Okay, anything?
That was it.
Anything else? Okay. Town attorney?
Just a quick update. The Colorado Court of Appeals, actually, I did speak to Judge Thrower about this on his way out. They came out with a decision just last Thursday, basically saying we can't decriminalize most things. So after
Can't
our
do what?
decriminalize, which you just had a discussion with the judge about.
Right.
So thanks to the Court of Appeals, we're still going to probably have just as many jury trials. It will still help with the way that failures to pay are reported. And so there's still a benefit to what we just did, but it's not nearly the benefit we thought it would be. So there will still probably be many jury trials. This was out of the city of Lafayette. They attempted to decriminalize, as we just did, and it was overturned.
So what we did would be, we have, it's
Ineffective.
ineffective.
It's ineffective
no
to
ineffect-
avoid jury trials. It's effective to take the other step that the judge was talking about, which is how to report failures to pay. And
Okay.
it avoids giving out warrants, but it doesn't allow us to escape a defendant's right to a jury trial.
Okay, so that's the only difference. is that
Exactly.
If a defendant came and said, I want a jury trial, we have to provide it, which is some of
Exactly.
the concerns that some
Sure.
residents had.
Mhm.
So
Right.
that's actually a good thing from that perspective, from their perspective.
Understood.
And we've never really had a jury trial, didn't we say that?
Oh, no, I think we've had some.
Jury
I don't
trials?
think we had-
6, 7.
Yes.
No, trials, they're not, those are judge trials, right?
I'd have to go back and look. Most of them are judge trials.
Most of them
Right.
are.
Yeah.
Not jury, but judge trials.
But I just wanted to give you that update, considering you just had this discussion about it. So one of the benefits, it depends how you look at it, but the cost savings of not having jury trials probably will no longer exist. So.
If we have jury trials, are the jurors just from Superior?
Yes.
Pool of jurors?
Yes.
Yeah, I've never heard of anyone being pulled for a jury here in Superior. in
It's
18
not often,
years.
but there's a lot of defense bar involvement, and there's more attorneys coming forward and more jury trial requests. And so this is a trend. My guess is this will trend upward.
Interesting. Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Town clerk. Okay. All right. Next is public comment. Anyone in the public wish to make any comments? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to read a statement or a letter that we received via email from Teresa Clark, Superior resident, who asked that this be read into the record. So I'm going to read it. Dear trustees and mayor, it has been 2 weeks since 31 residents requested that all grading, excavation, etc. in the buffer south side of the new town center development stop, and the town board not entertain any new PDFs or extensions from the developer until the buffer from Discovery Parkway on the east to 36 on the west is restored to its original size and is landscaped. According to the annexation agreement, the buffer is total 250 feet from the southern boundary (parentheses barbed wire fence) of the town center development, and the buffer and pedestrian trail were to have been included in the first FDP of the development. Somehow these details were either ignored or forgotten or both. As her mother would say, it's better to fix the problem than fix the blame. To immediately remedy the serious breach of the agreement, I have developed an outline of the plan that will correct this mistake in a timely manner, minimizing further inconvenience to the residents of Rock Creek. Phase 1, completion date November 23rd, 2015. Objectives. 1, developer immediately restores the buffer to its original size. Comments. The PDF for the initial grading suffices to move the massive amount of dirt back to its original location in the buffer. The grading equipment is still on property and can be immediately used to refill the buffer, which is now missing dirt. 2, town management immediately contact OSAC and PROSAC to formally request requirements for the buffer areas. Comments. Town management work with the committees for 3 weeks until November 2, 2015, at which time town requirements for the buffer shall be complete and delivered to the developer. 3, November 2, 2015, developer incorporates town initial requirements in a PDF for the buffer by November 23, 2015, and submits the PDF to the Planning Commission for public process and Planning Commission approval. Phase 2, completion date January 5th, 2016. Objectives: 1, November 23, 2015, the Town of Superior Planning Commission announces the buffer PDF is open to public input. Residence requirements shall be heard and incorporated into the PDF and Planning Commission's approval on January 5th, 2015. 2, developer provide water and electrical connections to the entire buffer area in preparation for landscaping by January 5th, 2016. Comments: electrical and water can be found in Discovery Office Park Complex. Phase 3, completion date February 22nd, 2016. Objectives: 1, January 5th, 2016, Board of Trustees announces the buffer's PDF is open for public input. Residence requirements shall be heard and incorporated into the PDF for the Town Board's approval on February 22nd, 2016. Phase 4, completion date April 11, 2016. Objectives: February 22nd, 2016, the town management broadcast an RFP landscape buffer. All proposals are to be submitted to the town by April 4th, 2016. Winning proposals should be approved on April 11th, 2016. Phase 5, completion date June 6, 2016. Objectives: 1, April 13th, 2016, landscape buffer begins completed to the town's residence requirements for completion on June 6, 2016. Thank you again for your assistance with the landscaping buffer. Regards, Teresa Clark. Okay, just to follow up on that, the town staff and developer are having ongoing discussions regarding this matter. So, to Ms. Clark and the residents, please know that this issue is ongoing discussion, and there will be additional follow-up to
Yeah, we'll have additional follow-up to Ms. Clark and those residents as well.
Can I ask a question about that, just so I understand? 'Cause I've been out there a few times to look at all the grading, and I'm just still blown away by the amount of grading that went down at the end of Discovery Park Drive. I mean, it's way down. The buffer that Ms. Clark is referring to, did they have to take that down as well, grade it down so it kind of matches the grade with everything else? And is the intention to actually put dirt back there and build it back up to where it originally was?
It's supposed to, the steepest the slope will have is a 3-to-1 slope.
Okay.
So they'll be, they grade it down 50 feet, they're bringing it back up 20 feet, or I forget what it is, it might be more than that, but, and then so it'll be not a steep slope like that. And then they'll revegetate, and then we'll get a landscape FDP submitted, and public comments made, and board's consideration for approval, and then, depending on what that plan looks like,
Okay.
there'd be additional improvements.
So
in
the
that area.
plan is to add dirt back to the buffer zone, back
Right.
to its original
Oh.
height or depth or whatever you want to say.
To a certain extent, because there'll still be a slope there.
That's right. So it won't actually go back to where it originally was. It's going to.
Not the entire
Okay.
buffer area, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
that hasn't been fully determined yet. Right now, they've dug way into it, and it's much more than 50 feet deep. So there's a lot of, and they're not clear. I'd like to have some kind of a review of what is actually planned and when they intend to do it, to put that back again to the buffer.
Yeah.
You know, because that's part of the excavation
Right.
FDP. So when is that coming back? How is it going to come back? And the whole 250 feet. So I'd like to have that, maybe we can get that status next month, next meeting, when we have that.
Well,
Because that's
I'll-
part of the existing, which was only supposed to be over excavated 20 feet,
I'll
and now
have-
we're down 70.
I'll have
or
something to
more.
you this week.
Okay.
And then we'll have a response to the residents this week as well.
Okay. So I think that what I heard, though, from what Teresa Clark was saying there, you know, there's the separate issue of putting the 250 feet of the buffer back with the dirt, you know, because there's a lot of dirt that has to move in there. And I know they're not done yet, so just want to know the timing of that and how that's supposed to happen, and before the excavation equipment goes. And then separately from that, or in addition to that, creating the FDP that landscapes that whole buffer area.
The end
And
product.
the timing, the end product, what it's going to look like, and get that moving right along with the other FDP amendments that are going to be coming forward to us. Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay.
I think different people have different expectations of what that landscape plan's going to look like, so that's part of working through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not so worried about that as much as the timing at the moment.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, because, you know, last time we talked about it, you and I, we were kind of on different paths as far as timing, and I think if we can collapse it down to something reasonable and sooner rather than late, you know, as we've talked about before.
Yeah.
So the sooner we can get information about what the plan is, I think it will be better for everybody. Sure.
Okay, next is presentations, and we have Miss Heather Craycraft with the Superior Chamber of Commerce for an update. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and trustees and town staff. You probably will not be surprised, but I am here to discuss that diverging diamond and the weekend closure that is up and coming. And I would probably not be doing my job if I was not here to echo everything you said, but to reiterate that business is open. Up until 9 p.m., Friday night, everyone is encouraged to come across the bridge and do all of their shopping. We hope they get all of it done at that time, but if any needs are met or not met at that time, that businesses will be open. I know a few small business owners over in the marketplace that have toyed with putting signs on their door that say, hey, we're going to offer a discount if you come see us this weekend. They're doing their best efforts to get it out on social media, and I would ask the same if you have any extra outlets that you can pass that information on to. I've also begged my compatriots on the other side of the bridge to do the same, because it will be as easy to get here as it has been in the past. There'll just be some slight detours and maybe just a few extra moments of patience. But many business owners are concerned, but I try to tell them as well as actually one of them even admitted that if we can make it through this last few months of changes, then the next few will be very, very easy once it's open. So thank you for that. And like I said, if you have any extra ways to get that information out, I know the staff has done everything they can, and I appreciate their efforts. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Can I make a quick comment? Just really sorry to hear that Kari is moving on. Are you going to get a replacement and all that? And
Thank you, Chris. Yes, if you had not heard, the Assistant Director for the Chamber, Kari Johnson, who is also a resident, a parent, a volunteer extraordinaire, has made a choice to move on from the Chamber. So yes, it saddens me deeply, but she cannot go far. So we are very lucky to have her really at our whim as we transition a new person. So we're in the process of accepting resumes. And if anyone has any questions, they can reach me at heather@superiorchamber.com, and we will find the next fabulous person to help the community. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Next is the consent agenda. We have two items on the consent agenda, the approval of the minutes and acceptance of OSAC. Meeting
Question.
notes?
Yeah.
Question?
I should have brought this up before we approved the agenda. I never saw meeting notes for OSAC.
Yeah, I don't have them either.
Okay.
I would table those until the next meeting, and we'll have them included.
Okay.
No, there's no attachment.
There was you're talking about the OSAC.
Yeah,
right.
Just
Yeah.
the meetings. Okay, so let's do the consent agenda 13A, and we'll table B, and we'll have that on the next consent agenda.
Mhm.
Do we need a motion to change that? Or don't
To motion to change.
change the agenda to table 13B?
You'll just need to do a motion to table it, yes.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, separate motion to actually table 13B.
Okay. Okay, motion to
So
table
moved.
13B. Trustee Sorelli, second by Trustee Gregoris. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Okay, would somebody like to make a motion to pass the consent agenda 13A?
Yes.
Trustee Sorelli, second by Trustee Hansen. All those in favor? Okay. Everyone except for Trustee Gregoris, who's absent. Okay. All right, next is item number 14, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Buxton for economic development services.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last review of this agreement, the board had asked that it be tabled and rescheduled at a time when everyone could be here. So I had Phyllis make sure everyone was here tonight, so thank you for that. Buxton is a company that works with municipalities primarily to help identify and recruit retailers. They'll work with town staff to implement the town's economic development goals and objectives that are established by the board and staff. We'll also work with them to pursue and identify retailers for their developments through their national reach of clients that they have relationships with. Buxton has worked with more than 500 municipalities in 42 states to assist them in understanding the changing needs and demands of their residents. They primarily are known for their assistance provided to communities seeking to enhance their retail shopping environments. They also hold a large repository of household information, which is helpful to identify retailers that would be a primary market for the towns and municipalities that they work for. They maintain more than 250 individual databases that are built to process a comprehensive set of household-level data available. The Buxton Government and Public Sector Services focuses on several objectives. One is to broaden and diversify tax revenues for the municipalities, increase employment, attract customers that are driving elsewhere for shopping, for healthcare and other types of services, and to revitalize downtown and commercial corridors. The scope of services that's included in your agreement includes research the town of Superior community through their database, define and evaluate the Superior trade area, and provide the town drive time trade area map, profile Superior's trade area residential customers to identify households and drive time trade areas and assess the households in Superior trade area to gain an understanding of the types of retailers that would be attracted to Superior, match retailers and restaurants to market potential, and qualify a list of match results to verify a retailer is currently looking and available to expand in the town of Superior, and create an individual marketing package for up to 20 targeted retailers and notify each retailer of by letter or by phone of potential viable match with the town of Superior. Budget implications for this service would be the cost of $50,000 annually is the service for Buxton. We've included these funds in the 2016 budget, and if there's any costs for 2015, those can be absorbed in the economic development budget we currently have for 2015. Lisa McKay, who's the vice president of Buxton, was going to be here tonight. Unfortunately, something came up and she was not able to make it. However the board would like to proceed, we could reschedule, or if you'd like to have the discussion and if there's follow-up questions, we can get back to Lisa, and I can get back to the board, or however you'd like to proceed tonight.
You know, from my perspective, we had a robust discussion on this at the last meeting when she was here and Katie Press was here, so I think time is of the essence to get this moving, to get towards looking towards the ICSC conference in
I second
Las
that.
Vegas. So I certainly want to hear questions and discussions, but I would hope that we could not table it and make a decision on it tonight.
Yep.
Okay. Trustee Hansen?
Yeah, so I appreciate the case studies that they were included in the packet.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, I wouldn't expect them to put case studies in that were failures, but it was
Right.
very interesting to
Right.
compare the ones that were the towns and municipalities about our size and the successes that they had and what they did. I'm also happy to see that Katie recognizes how she can effectively work with Buxton to make this a super positive experience and actually enhance their service and go beyond what Buxton would commit to of the 20 businesses. So my position hasn't changed at all in 5 years on Buxton. I think that they're the right company to go with, and I think that we need to go with them.
Okay. Trustee Giselle?
I'm a little bit I was trying to recollect, I thought we had made a decision that wasn't what was presented tonight, at the last meeting when we had the robust discussion. I love Buxton and what they do. I just still don't see how we as a town actually, why we should be paying this money to help the developers find people within their development. Because some of the case studies that I looked at really were a different structure than what we have, in that all of these developers, and even Katie said that at the last meeting, all have their own marketing people that should be gathering this information themselves for their particular area, for the marketplace. It's not our responsibility to pay for the marketing of that developer's area. So, when I look at these other ones, they were places that needed, towns that needed redevelopment within them, and they were much larger. And many of the places that they identified that were brought in were places like Kohl's, DSW, Shoe Warehouse, Dickies, Barbecue, J.C. Penney, Jimmy John's, TJ Maxx, and on and on and on. And I'm sitting here going, well, wait a second, those places already exist around us or already in here. But I still go back to, we just added something to the contract that Katie has with us, which is we're going to get information from somebody else that we're going to have to pay for. Then we're going to hand it over to Katie, and then she's going to contact these people, which she would have contacted anyway and has been doing. But I still go back to, I can't see how it's our responsibility or our fiscal responsibility either to a requirement to pay to identify people to go into these developments. I just have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with Buxton. I don't have a problem with what they do, but I think the developers of the marketplace and of Superior Town Center and others should pay for that work rather than us as a town.
At our last meeting, we had 6 of us here, and 3 were wanting to move forward with, and 3 were not. So that's why we're here. It's kind of the same motion or same item, just
And the same questions I have, that my last question that wasn't answered there either. How many new sales from from a retailer would we need as a town to realize tax revenues to recover the cost of this contract? How many new sales would it take at, what is our tax rate, 3-point-something percent?
3.45.
Yeah, how many to get that $50,000 back, or it's going to multiple years? How long would it take us to do that? Because that's the only way we'll get that money back, is to get additional taxes.
Well, you
back.
can assume if they remain vacant, it's 0, and if it's a robust building, it'll be sooner, or a robust retailer, it'll be sooner. But I mean, it's.
But it's not our responsibility to market that
well,
space.
I would disagree. I would disagree with that.
It's not my opinion.
No.
It's a fact. Who
No,
is
that's-
responsible for marketing
No,
that
that's your
space?
opinion.
Anyway. Okay.
That's your personal opinion.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
I would like to understand what Katie Press has done for us. Other than, at this point, it's a lot of discussion, but I'm not sure that what we have actually gained from that contract. So I kind of would like to understand that first before I
It's a good
decide.
question.
What?
It's a good question.
Really?
But that doesn't apply to the vote of this for
Yes, it
Buxton, though.
does.
Well,
Yes, it
I-
does, absolutely.
Because this information
To a
goes
certain
back to
degree,
her.
I agree with that, because
Well, her component is the local knowledge of the local market, knowing the players in the local market, knowing who's moving where, knowing who's doing what.
I completely get that.
And-
But what has that done for us? What have we gotten that we wouldn't have already had?
I'm
anyway?
sure she could name several retailers that she's been instrumental in getting over the years. I don't know that
Well,
myself. but-
so that's information I need to know in order to move forward one way or the other. Because, Buxton does sound like a great
I-
marketing tool.
They are, but you also need the local. We don't have an economic development person on staff, and I think a lot of towns do, and that's what Buxton. That's who Buxton would be interacting with, and I think without someone on the local level, it would then, if we don't have a Katy Press, it would fall on town manager, assistant town manager, or someone to follow up with these retailers and try to
Okay,
close
so-
deals, which is not.
So the way I see this is Katy Press was our first step, our first, dip into these waters that are a little bit different, that we've never, we have no economic development department. And so now I need to know, how did that work? How did that pan out for the town? And then to me, this is the next step. So depending on the information I understand from Katy Press and what she was able to do for the town, I think this is the logical next step, and I'm happy to be a part of it, but I need to know if it's necessary to make that next step. I even need
I
to
think
know if
her-
I need to continue on with what we already are doing.
Sure. And I think we had, several of us had that question, do we need both or do we need one or the other? I do think it's key to have both because they do different things. And if you get a lot of leads and you don't have anyone to follow up on them, then they're just that, they're just leads. And that's how I see the two of them working together. Trustee Pennington and then Gores.
Those of you, Elia, you weren't there, but we actually posed that to Katie at the last meeting, and she was very frank at that meeting, saying there's no need for both of us. Upon reflection for the past month, she apparently has changed her mind and has a different take on this. I think it is time to give it a whirl. What troubles me is all of a sudden a 3-year term popped up in the contract.
For Katie?
For Buxton. So it has automatic renewal on it. We have 60 days ahead of time to say, no, we don't want to do this again. So I would at a minimum ask that 90 days beforehand, we review progress and results, et cetera, so we very proactively renew and it just doesn't auto-renew.
Yep, I would actually go further and ask the town manager to put it on his calendar right now, 90 days, if we approve this,
Right.
90 days ahead of that we review it
Right.
then.
I want
So
no
put it in the calendar
automatic
now, let's
renewals.
not even
I'm
forget
in
about
for
it.
50 with Katie's services as the first step. And but I want it all to be renewed to see, if we're overlapping, if we need both, if we want to re-up both, that kind of thing.
But you're talking 50 and 50.
And
25,
Katie- yeah,
50 and
Katie-
25, or 50 and 35?
25.
Yeah. I'm willing, to answer your question, you need to make 1.7 million in sales at 3% to get $51,000. So,
Right.
right.
And who's going to commit to getting that retailer in place,
Right.
in the developer's area, to get that revenue?
I think your points are very well made. I think it's all valid, but I'm just willing to make this leap.
Okay. Trustee Gregorus and then Trustee Cirilli.
So I'm obviously in favor of Buxton. I'm very impressed with their presentation and what they bring to the table. I don't think it's our responsibility to find retailers for the developer, but I think it's in our best interest to do what we can from our end as a town to bring the best retailers here. And this is the one way to do it, and I'm willing to try it for a year or two.
Okay. Trustee Cirilli?
I echo both of the last two comments I've heard regarding the responsibility versus what behooves us. We send the town manager and the mayor to Las Vegas every year making contacts, trying to bring in work. My view on this is I'm willing to do this and let them come back, and I think your idea of 90 days and tell us, is this helpful to you in this upcoming year, and do it in enough time to know where we want to go before the contract automatically renews. So I'm in favor of doing this and seeing. And we have empty spaces, and we might not get that $1 million. We won't get the $1 million in a year, but if we get somebody that's here and stays, we're going to get the $1 million over time. So
Okay.
Uh,
I'm hearing a pretty broad level of support. I'm wondering if somebody wants to,
One other comment.
okay. One.
If I approve the Buxton, I'm not going to approve Katie Press.
Hmm.
It's one or the other for me.
Is that part of the resolution, though?
That's in the budget, correct? I mean, she's in the 2016 budget.
Right.
And when is her contract up?
Well, at the end of the year.
So it's not an automatic renewal, right?
Well, I mean,
It's in the budget, and so it would renew if we approve the budget.
Right.
right.
No, not
If you want,
necessarily,
if you want the
no.
agreement to come back, it can come back to the board.
I would like it to come back.
This
because-
agreement or
No.
the
Katie.
Katie's? Yeah.
Right, I would definitely like that to come back, and that's December?
Yeah.
When would that be?
Well, I'd probably have it at the end of November or first, yeah.
And we have to watch our meetings, and we only have one in December.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe could we address that at the retreat and kind of see where we are and see if we need to put that on a meeting?
Yeah.
Why don't we do that? Okay, Trustee Hanson.
Yeah, I would, if I was pushed to make a decision for one or the other, I would still stick with Buxton because I believed in them for 5 years.
Right.
But, just like at the last meeting, I think that they both can work really well together. I'm not convinced, and we've got the best staff around, but Katie Press speaks the business language. And I think we give her the hot leads to go to these businesses that she'll do the right thing, and I think that she would be a big help. So I totally get what Trustee Williams is saying, but I think for $75,000, that's money well spent. And I want to say that when we originally met with Buxton, they said that there was one community that landed one business because of their efforts, and it brought in $80,000 in revenue that first year, just one business. And I think that could happen here too. I am positive that will happen here. That not only will we get one good business, we're going to get several good businesses because we have so much opportunity over there, over here, and perhaps up on the hill. So to me, this is a slam dunk, and it's going to go over very well.
Okay.
Just like to make a
On
motion.
that note,
Could I make one more comment? I have a problem still with it because of the fact that we have no connection and no influence over the developer, the marketing groups within the development. That's my concern. And if I could get some comfort from someplace that we actually can influence them to take the information that we value and provide through this exercise, then I could be for it. But until I have that belief, and Katie even mentioned that she can only go and suggest and recommend to the marketing teams within the development groups. We can't control that. We might say this is the best person. So that's my concern, is we're spending money and we don't know that we can actually influence the marketing teams within the development. That's my concern. Not about what they provide, because I think it's excellent information. I'm just saying that as a town, are we throwing money after something that won't be used?
okay. Trustee Hanson.
No.
Motion?
No. I was going to make a motion.
Okay. Trustee Gregoris, motion.
But
You can second it.
would like to make a motion to approve Town of Superior Resolution Number R-44, Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving an agreement with Buxton for economic development services.
Motion by Trustee Gregoris, second by Trustee Hanson. Roll call vote?
Gregoris?
Yes.
Folsom?
Yes.
Dozell?
No.
Israeli?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Williams?
So I know this is going to pass, and I'm going to vote no in that I don't want to approve two different contracts, and if I can't have a guarantee that we will not be renewing the other contract, because we don't even know how that's going to work, and if we're double paying, I'm saying no.
Okay. All right. Motion passes. All right. Item number 15, adoption of a resolution appointing members to the Superior Youth Leadership Council.
Section 21240 of the Superior Municipal Code addresses memberships of the town advisory committees, including appointment of advisory committee members. The town has solicited applications for the Youth Leadership Council through town media over recent months. There are two candidates, change there, that have been interviewed tonight by the board. So we've scheduled 4 appointments to be considered by the board tonight. Because there's space on the Youth Leadership Council, we don't have ballots, we have a resolution, and the board can decide if you want to appoint one, both, or none of the candidates.
I think we should go forward and appoint both of those
Yep.
gentlemen that spoke this evening.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask some questions before you guys all vote? I'm going to be
Mayor Pro
abstaining.
Tem Williams has
Sorry.
a question.
I'm going to be abstaining from voting. So there's 2 spots open. Is that correct, or are there 3 spots open?
There's more, I forget if the last resolution, I don't think there's a limit on,
We had 19, right?
right.
How many do we have now?
Yeah.
Core group
So
of
there's-
less than
there's
that
plenty of
doesn't
room.
show up.
So there's plenty of room. I'm assuming only 2 showed up instead of the 3?
Right.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, I would, I can't influence anything, but I think you should continue.
Okay, all right.
All right, let's
Yes.
carry on.
Let's carry on.
Motion by trustee Dozell and a second by trustee Gregorius. All those in favor?
No, we have to do the
We have to write,
resolution.
read the resolution, right?
Okay.
We have to
Okay.
read it, yes.
Sorry, getting ahead of myself.
Right.
Go ahead. trustee Dozell.
Town of Superior Resolution Number R-45, Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior, Colorado, appointing members to the Superior Youth Leadership Council. And we are appointing J.D. Inge, and with a term,
Inge.
and then Mayank Mishra. Both of those terms expire August 2017. Now, one was a sophomore and one was a junior, but I guess they both still expire at the same time. Okay, thank you.
Okay, motion by trustee Dozell and second by trustee Gregorius. All those in favor?
Just a point of order, though, on the resolution itself, we will take off Kendall's name, and then once we're able to interview Kendall, then we'll have a separate resolution for that.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, correct. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor? Passes unanimous with
One
Mayor Pro
abstention.
Tem Williams abstaining.
One abstention.
Okay, item number 16, adoption of a resolution appointing a member to the Open Space Advisory Committee.
As mentioned in the previous action by the board, we have appointments that are guided by the code for advisory committees. We have 1 vacancy on the Open Space Advisory Committee. We've advertised, as we do with all committees. The board interviewed 1 candidate on July 27th, Joel White. We haven't received any other applications for this committee. So as with the previous action, you can appoint Mr. White, or we'll re-advertise for additional applicants.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Williams?
I say that we move to appoint Mr. White.
Okay, you want to go ahead with the resolution?
Yep. I'd like to make a motion for the Town of Superior Resolution R-46, Series 2015, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior, Colorado, appointing a member to the Open Space Advisory Committee, and that is Joel White, term expiring June 2016.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Williams, second by trustee Gregorius. All those in favor? Passes unanimous. Thank you. All right, next is item number 17, Resolute Concept Plan Presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Representatives of Resolute Investment are here tonight to present a concept plan to the Board of Trustees concerning a rezoning, replat, and final development plan for lots 1 and 2 of the Rock Creek Ranch filing 17B. The property is currently undeveloped and designated as Regional Activity Center in the Rock Creek Ranch PD area, plan development. As you'll see in their concept plan, they have a mixture of uses that they would like to move forward with. And you'll also see how it works with the surrounding properties Let's see, it's currently zoned Regional Activity Center, which doesn't include any residential, which would be the purpose for the rezone. So they're here to present tonight and answer any of your questions. Gary Rohr is here.
Thanks, Matt. Mr. Mayor, trustees, my name is Gary Rohr. I'm president and owner of Resolute Investments. Also have with me tonight Chris Barnes from Resolute, vice president of real estate, and Craig Karn with Concilium, who's done some of the work here for us on this. So I'm understanding this to be a concept meeting, or is that the right term, in Superior? So I want to talk for about 10 minutes and then be quiet and get some feedback from you, because that's really what I'm here for tonight, is to hear what you think. So just starting sort of at the beginning, one thing I didn't put in this, and I realized when I ran through this earlier today, was exactly where this property is. Is everyone familiar with this property?
Yes.
Okay, so we all know what we're talking about. So we bought this property, Rohr Investments, in June of 2008, and one of the main reasons we bought it was because, and we knew it was obviously zoned commercial, and the town said very little chance of putting residential on it. We knew all that going in for sure, and we thought that, sort of the next slide, we thought that ConocoPhillips was imminent. In fact, we bought the property before ConocoPhillips announced, because we'd heard through some brokers that were working with it that it was an imminent deal, it was about to close, and it did, and all of that. But as we all know, it didn't go to fruition. But it took about 3 years, and it was 2011 until ConocoPhillips really kind of went away in Louisville. So for 3 years, we were working on a office campus type environment over there on this property, and in the last 3 years now, we worked a lot with retail, with some hotel, and quite a bit of office with Jones Lang LaSalle, particularly marketing office, build-to-suit office for us. And we've just had virtually zero success with any commercial uses on this site. And for this presentation tonight, I started to think about, well, how can I show, I know what we're doing every day. I know the phone calls we get, the interest, the lack of it, et cetera. This is what we do for a living. But how do I show it sort of quantitatively, what's happening on this site and why it has or hasn't happened? And as far as office is concerned, this is some, as current information as exists. This is CBRE's Quarter 2 2015 office market data. There's a theory, and this northwest corridor is sort of this Boulder Turnpike, 36 corridor up here. Does not include Boulder. It's been very much a laggard as far as performance, as far as office is concerned. And there's been a theory that people are going to Boulder. It's kind of a dumbbell-shaped phenomenon that's going on, that people are going downtown and they're going to Boulder, but they're sort of bypassing this corridor right now, particularly as light rail isn't here yet. And that's really borne out. I don't know if it's exactly that theory, frankly, but it's borne out in the numbers for sure. So Class A in Boulder vacancy, 6.6%, rate $42. This is what office is getting in Boulder currently. And there is a developer kind of rule of thumb at about 10%. When vacancies in office get to about 10%, as they go down to 10% or below, rates really start to go up. And that's a point, it's kind of a magic inflection point, kind of a tipping point. And when vacancies are lower than 10%, you start getting new buildings built. It tends to just sort of be like a rule of thumb. It tends to happen over and over. You can see what's going on in Lodo downtown, 4.8% vacancy, $43 rate, very strong. This Northwest Corridor, just an extreme laggard. This isn't everything. This is just Class A. This is just the nicest product up here. 16% vacancy, $30 rate, significantly lower numbers. And you can see it's just, it's got a long ways to go as far as office is concerned in this corridor. This site is literally across the street from a Walmart and across the street on the other side from a regional fortress mall, Mace-Rich's Foothills Mall. So retail on the site is kind of a no-brainer. Hey, there should be some retail on this site. This is the same, different data, but from the same source, CBRE. This is retail. Again, Quarter 2, so this is current data as exists. This is for every submarket in the Denver metro area, including Boulder, so greater Denver metro area. Every submarket. The Northwest Corridor, almost 15% vacancy, 14.8% vacancy. By far, the highest vacancy of any submarket in Denver. And unfortunately, the story gets quite a bit worse. The rate, so it's not just a factor of vacancy, it's a factor of vacancy and rate. The rate up here at $12.81, the average is $17.87. Drastically the lowest rate of any rate in the market as well. And this isn't just, you know, some data on a sheet. We've got from our site across the street, we've got a boarded up new Jack in the Box. We've got several pads that are all in Broomfield that are vacant, that aren't built on. 3 blocks down the street to us to the east is a Best Buy, which most of you probably know is about to close. And it's the only Best Buy in Colorado that's being closed right now. And it's being redeveloped into residential. They're going to put apartments on that site. I mean, significantly high quality retail for the most part, but just not enough people to support the retail that's here. It's just overbuilt. They're just significantly overbuilt of retail. So this is a slide I just threw in to show, to give a little perspective. This is sort of my perspective. When I put on glasses and think about this site, the Gary glasses show this. These are, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on these, but these are other land holdings that we had from 2008 on. So these are other properties that we owned in the recession. And we're developers that tend to keep real estate long term. So we do development and we tend to keep things long term. So it's okay. We know where you go through these cycles. We know there are ups and downs. That's okay. So we end up, but when the cycle is here, that's when it's kind of time to, you know, make hay. Sun's shining, let's make hay. So that's what we've been doing. So downtown Denver, Littleton, Centennial, Westminster, Greenwood Village, Castle Rock, these are 6 other parcels that we own in the same period of time. All of these parcels, you can see what has happened on them, and it's been a myriad of uses. Excuse me. So we've sold office building, hotel under construction. We're under construction on a Class A self-storage facility. We did a major entitlement. Apartments are built. All the rest of the land is sold. Major hotel is in planning in Centennial. Right down the street in Westminster, all sites are sold. We assembled the corner of the southeast corner of Church Ranch, 104th, and the Boulder Turnpike in Westminster. And that's where the Drury Hotel is right now today. So all sites are sold. The Drury Hotel, the Quaker Steak and Lube, and the retail is all. It's not only we didn't not have only gone through planning, but it's all built. Greenwood Village, Colorado, we tore down an existing building. We built a Class A medical office building on that site, which we own and will own long term. Castle Rock, we're under construction. We did a entitlement there. We're under construction, 83 units, high-end apartments. Every one of these, many of these are the same size or similarly sized parcels. There's not a single acre left on any of these parcels. I mean, we know how to do this is sort of my point. I'm not being narcissistic about it. This is what we do in this market. And up here on this site, you know, we've just had very little of anything go on this parcel. We had a hotel under contract back in 2009, 2010, but it was completely contingent on ConocoPhillips. So when ConocoPhillips went away, they went away, et cetera. So where do we find ourselves today on this site? And where we find ourselves on the site is we've got a site that has a lot of attributes. It has incredible views. I don't know if everyone here has actually been on this site before, but it's spectacular, you know, for sure. Particularly from this walking path, which is existing, you know, Simpson put in for all these apartments. This walking path and these views across Autry Reservoir to the Flatirons over here and Longs Peak up here, et cetera, are just incredible. I believe personally that part of my purpose on planet Earth is to express creativity, God-given creativity through real estate. That's me personally. I believe that with my soul. When I get on this site, and I would say that if you had a Urban Land Institute, a real estate group, come out and say, what should you do with this site? I mean, residential would be a part of it, and it would be probably first and foremost because of these views and the connectivity for sure. I'm not saying that's what the town wants, but I'm saying that residential works all day on this site, and it's here right now in the market. So in conversations with Matt, Matt said, well, show us something. You know, we still want commercial on the site, but show us something, and that's what we're here doing tonight. This hotel we have under contract right now. So, and that's part of what's driving this conversation tonight. So we worked with this hotel group on a number of other sites in town. We've taken them to a site. They're a group out of Texas. They developed the Hilton and Marriott product. And we took them to a site out near DIA, which they have under contract, a site in Littleton, which they now have under contract. We've been helping them with finding some sites in town. We showed them this site. They've they're now under contract. It's not a, we have other sites in town that have been sold that will have 10 people interested and 3 in a best and final. I mean, a lot of demand for it. That's not the case here, but we do have a hotel. I don't want to overplay the hotel, but we do have this group, which would be a Hilton or Marriott product. They've gone quite a ways down the due diligence. It's really up to us now. So in the contract, they've gone past the due diligence period where they've got, it's not a huge amount of money, but maybe $50,000 now of earnest money that they've gone hard with on this deal. So they're committed to this site. It's up to us now to go do all of the planning for the rest of the site for all the improvements so that we could deliver them a pad. So that's where we find ourselves right now. So we would have to go put in something in the neighborhood of like $2 million in improvements roughly right now on this site to deliver this pad, which is under contract for way less than $2 million. And it's the money aspect of it to some degree, but it's also the planning. So to deliver this site on 13 acres, the site is way high up here as far as grading. So the site, all this needs to be graded down. You have to grade the whole site, all 13 acres. The water is in Tyler, and the water's over here in Flatirons Crossing Drive. So we need to water loop all the way through this property. But exactly where do you put it? Here we put it in this public road and take it down through an easement, created through here. If we kind of know what the uses are on the site, then you can start doing all of these improvements that need to be done for the whole 13 acres. So we find ourselves at something of a crossroads. In conversations with Matt, we said, well, let's propose something like 50-50 and bring it to the town board and see what you all think. This plan literally at 6.8 acres of townhomes, and these are all for sale, high-end for sale product, by the way. But we would limit it to that. It's the only discussions we've had with any developers of this kind of product. And that's what this site merits, for sure. Because of the views, because of the connectivity, it'll all be for sale, townhomes most likely. Very high-end, like $400,000 to maybe $700,000 kind of price range. Pretty high-end product for Superior. We've got literally half the site here, residential. That would be the rezone. That would be the first start of this process. The rest of the site, hotel or office, some kind of retail here. We were not showing this part, and to literally make it half and half, we showed this use. I don't know exactly what would go here, but I think eventually, particularly with new units in here, probably drive some demand, and hotel, drive some demand for this. So this is where we find ourselves. If we can do some residential on this site, we can go get this hotel done, and we can make this happen in this cycle. Without it, we're kind of stuck a little bit on the site, which is certainly our problem, not yours. But want to kind of just put it out there and get some feedback.
Trustee Hanson.
So the first question that came up was, the plan was to have a hotel there before. Granted, it was dependent on ConocoPhillips to be there. Mm-hmm. But when that fell through, the hotel fell through. Now you're potentially proposing 2 hotels. That it didn't make sense to me why you would want to have 2 hotels on that site. And why not one that was a little bit bigger than one of those? So you kind of split the difference there. But why 2 hotels?
Well, so this, we're under contract for 2.5 acres because that is a Hilton Garden Inn, which they don't have approval for yet. That's a Hilton Garden Inn concept right there, and that's what they need. So they don't need more than that. That's one. So we showed this at one. We can put more residential anywhere on here, and it'll work great. We're trying to do this kind of half and half compromise on this site. We will get another hotel, or we will get an office building here. It just might be the next cycle. Mm-hmm. I mean, it might be 10 years from now before we're bringing that in. And we might get lucky, it might be this cycle. I just know we can do that today because we're in a contract with that particular use.
Okay. And the other question is for Matt. The Autry Reservoir, is that owned by what used to be the Horizons? And
Yeah, it's Simpson Housing used to own it. Now it's Bell Flatirons.
Bell Flatiron. So would these residents, if this were to happen, would they have access to that, or
No.
Just a view?
Just a
Right.
view.
Okay. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
So, would you be doing the residential right away, or not?
Yeah, there is a lot of demand for the residential. That's the easy part, frankly, particularly at this location. I mean, that would be the easy part. What we would do right away is I don't want to miss the cycle, so we would process quickly a rezone for half of the site to residential, because it's not zoned residential today, and we would start all the engineering for all of this grading and utilities, all the site improvements. They would bring in their site development plan, SDP or FDP in Superior, FDP, and they would start working on FDP. So these units and this hotel would go, and all the improvements for the site would go right away.
So when you say all the improvements, even the 2 pads that are sitting there that would be empty, they would be completely improved?
They would be horizontally improved, meaning they would be turned into pads. They would be graded within 6 inches of final. The sidewalk and all these improvements would be done out here, and they'd be graded. They would be finished pads that someone could come in and develop.
So there'd be concrete? Or no?
No, they would be dirt.
Okay. All right.
They would be dirt, yeah. The dirt would be plus or minus 6 inches.
Okay. I have a
Would,
question.
would the roads be in, or that you're sketching out now?
This road would be a public road,
Okay.
a public improvement. I mean, it'd probably be, I assume, however we end up doing it, but I assume it'd be owned by the Metro District here. And this, it would be, in other words, it wouldn't be it would be maintained by these users, but it would be a public road. This would be a public road. This would go in right away, and these improvements would go in. And all the grading and all the utilities, like I was describing before, would go in right away.
Trustee Grigors.
I mean, you have a great piece of property, great location. I mean, it isn't just the views of the reservoir to be such close proximity to go walk to the movie theaters, walk to the mall, grab a bite to eat. And for a hotel too to be that close, I think it's you're right. This is the time if you can catch this cycle. What is that third pad? I mean, you said commercial lot, but what do you envision that to be really? I know, but I know what kind.
So this has the least thought of anything
Okay, that's
of
why I
anything
didn't
on
get
here.
it.
We showed this to Matt, and I'm not blaming you for this, Matt. We showed this to Matt with residential here, so this carried over to
okay.
here, and Matt said, "Hey, these aren't." I'm putting words in your mouth. Something to the effect of Matt said, "Hey, these aren't." We were trying to do 50-50, and Matt said, "Hey, can you retail pad here?" And we said, "Yeah." We can do, you can do anything on paper, no problem. So this is like a 3/4 acre retail pad. I think it would take a little while. I could see a coffee shop and maybe a little, something that supports all of this going there eventually.
Okay.
Trustee Hanson.
I think I recall several years ago when you guys were in here that potentially there was could have been a 7-Eleven. Wasn't there discussions about a 7-Eleven? So I'm very envious of just across the street, it might be fast food and all, it doesn't have to be fast food, but there's all kinds of retail activity, dining activity and stuff going on there. Have we missed the boat on that for this side here, and is that possible at all? Or is this really, for you guys, the slam dunk best use of that property?
I don't know if it's slam dunk. It's timing. It's where we are in the cycle right now. So we spent quite a bit of time on this site with Taco Bell, which went over here to Broomfield, and with 7-Eleven. The problem for us with 7-Eleven, like if we were here right now, we'd say, hey, does 7-Eleven make sense here? Let's plan it or not. Does the town want it or don't you? But by itself, we're not going to design 13 acres around a 7-Eleven.
Right.
So by itself, it never made any sense. We talked to them over here.
That's right, yeah.
Trying to completely put it over there so we could do something else with the rest of the site. But there's as you know, there's that Jack in the Box boarded up. There's pads available, right across here.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of demand for those kind of pads.
Well, I certainly wouldn't see a 7-Eleven going in with upscale housing there, but perhaps a nice restaurant or something. I don't know.
I'm gonna disagree with the concept that we need this to be 50-50. I like the hotel. I like the single hotel, and I think we're absolutely in the cycle for residential. And I think we ought to build the hotel, or you ought to build the hotel, and the rest of it residential. I think it would be crazy to have a dirt pad sitting there in the middle of that for the next 10 years while we wait. We've got other dirt pads in this town where we've been waiting on things to happen, and they don't just happen because people want them to happen. And, we're in the timing is right for this, and it would be nice to have a project start and finish without these little chunks kind of waiting for something to materialize. I don't know that it ever would. And I think we'd be in another I think in a few years you'd be in saying, hey, can we convert that commercial pad that we've got nothing going on, can we convert that to residential? We just did that down the street, and it worked there for that. So that's my 2 cents.
Where did the 50-50 come from, though?
I think previous boards have said we want all of this to be office. We don't want more residential in town.
Commercial,
Or
We
commercial.
always thought this was ideal commercial property.
I think
They're not
think
panning out.
I think they did too when they bought it in 2008. I think we all thought a lot of things in 2008, and some of that panned out and some didn't. So here we are.
But I'm not prepared to totally give up that vision. I mean, those numbers about Boulder being full.
Microphone, please.
We are unfortunately clumped into that number on Northwest Corridor, but we're pretty dang close to Boulder. And at what point do we start capitalizing on that? The reason the housing's in demand is because Boulder, right? And they're so overpriced, stuff's coming our way. And so we're feeling those effects. At what point down the road, if we stay firm with a vision, will we end up getting the commercial and the office? Where else is it going to go? And this next election looks very, very important for Boulder. It could reconstitute the entire city council, making it anti-development, et cetera, which brings it the potential for that commercial and office development more readily down this way, in my opinion. So the economics of residential development are different. The long-term economics of residential development are quite different from the long-term economics of commercial and office in terms of impact on a town. So, Matt, you're very fluent in that. If we go to this largely being commercial, and I would agree, if I were hotel number 2 on the corner, I would preclude hotel number 1 ever being allowed there. It just seems common sense that they'll put that in their contract, not allowing a competitive hotel right next door. But I don't know the hotel business. I don't know if that actually brings in business, if there are 2 side by side. But Matt, if you could address the economics and the long-term impact on comp plan and budgets, et cetera, of going largely residential here versus being successful largely with office and commercial down the road.
So the 50-50, I guess, came out of discussions between us, staff, and Gary and his staff, because it's not zoned for residential now, and our position as a town has been, this is commercial, we want commercial. They have a hotel under contract, they need to develop the whole site for infrastructure, and this is one way they're able to get there, there's some benefits, but then you have to allow some residential. And so just in my mind, when I was discussing it with them and looking at it, I couldn't justify anything more than that
Right.
in my head. the 50% residential.
But can we even
that's-
justify
that's-
50% is the question. If you look at the return on investment for the town of Superior, on the potential tax, tap fees, all this stuff, and then the long-term property tax, et cetera, the old adage is residential doesn't pay for itself in the long run, right?
Unless it hits a certain price point. Yeah, but that's correct, yeah.
Right.
Well,
So
I think
I really want him to go to the vision we had, and also
So from an
the
ongoing, so
economics.
from a one-time fee and revenue generation, this significantly would help the town as far as paying down existing debt and those one-time fees. Ongoing revenue would be slightly less than what you would have if they had multiple commercial retail pads there and 2 hotels or an office building, because commercial is taxed at 29% compared to residential, which is less than 8%. But the question is, how long do we want to wait as well?
That's exactly. I mean, the tax on nothing is nothing, and that's what we've had for
Right.
all this time. And I think we've got to also remember we've got a town center going in over there with a massive amount of office that
and
is
1,400 properties, right?
well, but
I'm
focus.
just trying to have a fair discussion.
But
here.
focus on the office piece, though, too. I mean, this. If we say we want this to be office, we want that to be office, they're competing with one another. And we just saw the numbers of, the vacancy numbers. They're dealing with that, and they're dealing with that. So,
But once you develop it,
It's
it's
gone.
developed. And
That's true.
so I don't see any hurry or any reason to have it all 100% residential or even 50-50.
Trustee.
So we're talking about a lot of commercial here. Are we ruling out the potential for retail and dining or anything like that? Because this seems like a good project that Buxton would work on, that we could get a Buxton study done and something that could happen, I think, fairly quickly, and see if this is a spot that's viable for retail and dining or something else. Would you guys be, if you had businesses knocking on your door saying, hey, we want to sell our products here, will you build to suit or what have you?
Oh, sure, no problem. This, I mean, I don't know how to go back on this thing, but this is this Northwest retail market. So this is restaurants and shopping stores. This is drastically the worst market in
Yeah.
Greater Denver metro area. I mean, I can tell you, your study will be very negative. It
Well,
just will
and
be. There's a lot of vacant stores over there.
I think that, part of the reason that Best Buy is closing and then they're building a massive amount of apartments there is because the retailers in the area are all saying there's not enough rooftops to pay for all this stuff. Now, I'm not an advocate for major growth, but I think there's a reason that the Jack in the Box is closed and there's other pads. That area is saturated, and it's not just going to magically unsaturate if we say, we're going to build something better. I mean, there's just, when you put numbers on the number of people around that area, there's just not enough people to support all of that stuff. So I think we either be content with leaving it empty for an indefinite amount of time or put something on it that will sell and generate revenue for the town, places for people to live. Trustee Gazelle.
Let's be clear about the Best Buy. They would have stayed open except that whole area is being redeveloped, where the great indoors was. So they're not closing because they didn't have business. They're closing because they wouldn't renew the contract because they're going to redevelop that. The reason Jack in the Box is closed is because the walls were falling down. It was an unsafe place to be and nobody wants to take over that path. But now back to your area. I would really like to see that developed. I've hated to see that place dusty and weed and infested and all that. Not that it's been bad, but it just, looks depressed, because it's nothing happening. I think that I see a lot of times when one hotel, like the one that you're talking about, comes in, a second one similar in size usually follows it. Because if it's a good spot for one, you look across at Louisville here, there's multiple, units of hotels. So there's a great possibility that the second one would come. I don't know, when you said the second cycle 10 years from now, that worried me a little bit, but if it could all happen in the current cycle, that would be great. The other thing for me is that there's clearly no question, you put high-end townhomes there, they will sell. So it all gets down to, we'll have to figure out, we've tried and tried and tried as a city, as a town, to get somebody that want to come there for commercial. You've tried and tried and tried. And it's just not happening. It's a very awkward location for retail, commercial. It's not something easy to find, and people are not excited about being able to walk across to the AMC if they're going to have their commercial there. They want to be able to see from the highway and things like that. It's a very awkward location. So I'm almost coming to reconciliation in my mind that something like this would be very good. Because you're right, I've walked along that path there, around there, and it's beautiful. If you can get past, up to the path, get through the dirt, it's very gorgeous. So this concept is interesting to me. I think it seems pretty dense, but everything we've done that's townhouses or apartments seems to be very dense, more dense than we'd like it to be. But it's a small space, and people will buy. They don't care because they can get out and walk the trails, and we have a lot of trails within Superior. So I would just question, is 92 too many? I know it would be good for you all, and I like the idea that they're high-end, because I don't want to see and I want to see enough parking, too, I'd want to see, because in some of our other locations, we have people parking on the streets because there's only one space in the garage to park. And that's not good. If you got a $400,000 to $700,000 townhome, you better be able to park your 2 or 3 cars off the street. And I always thought, talking about streets, you're talking this one would be public. I thought Tyler was a private street. Is that a public or a private?
It's private.
Tyler's private. This is a private street.
Is it private?
It's private.
Yes.
Okay. So, but you could access off of Tyler even though it's private.
Yes, right now there's no connection here, but we did an agreement with Simpson when we bought this in 2008 that we could make connection and then pay a pro rata share of maintenance.
Okay, because I thought Tyler was private, so I saw the connection.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so if you don't think you can get a hotel, the second hotel, to come in a reasonable amount of time, then I could see where there could be another row of potential townhomes along like that road there, or maybe move the road in. But I'd still like to see some commercial retail restaurant, starting where your little teeny tiny one there is, and maybe along where, along there. So if you don't do that other hotel, this is just off the top of my head talking about this, I could see where, if we could take advantage of, Superior take advantage of our streets and all the cars that go past there, because there are a lot of cars that go past there. If there's any way we could take advantage of that and get some retail, commercial, I don't mean office buildings, 'cause I don't think you're ever going to be able to get an office building to fill in there, one office building by itself. Because we have Discovery Office Park up here. They only have one building. They have the ability to put 4 or 5 more up there, and they can't seem to get anybody to want to build there. So this is more free streaming, kind of coming off the top of my head. I don't like the idea of building more residential, but I also know that everybody loves Superior as a place to live. So maybe we go back to what we're known for, is a great place to live. Because finding people or businesses to come in and fill up these spaces has not been good for us, nor has it obviously been good for you since 2008. So I like the idea of taking advantage of the views that we still have for some lucky person that can afford to buy the property here. And then if you can get that hotel to come in, that'd be good on that corner. And then if there could be some more retail, commercial, something, along this Colton Road, take advantage if we can of that space. I think that this is better than leaving it vacant. That would be my.
Trustee Cirilli, do you have any?
Well, I agree with your comments. I hate to give up the commercial. The natural residential along the lake is, that makes such great sense, and I hate to give up commercial down by Colton I do have some reservations about how big a deal residential is going to be right on Colton, but that remains to be seen. And this is a concept plan, so we're not committing to anything, but I guess we're not saying no either. We're not gagging on it. I'd like to, another question I had about hotels, and you have one apparently, and hopefully one more. We're looking to have 2 go into the town center. There's a number of hotels already around the mall area. Is there a point of oversaturation on hotels that you worry about at all?
Sure, absolutely. So the way these cycles work is they're, of course, and it's not like I'm telling anybody anything they don't already know, is you get this momentum of demand and financing and equity, and you see apartments everywhere. And, well, right now we're in a cycle like that for hotels.
There's
So, yeah,
apartments popping up everywhere too, in
the apartments,
Bloomfield and
we're in the we're at the end of the apartment cycle. We're in the middle of the hotel cycle. There's a lot of hotels in the market right now. So yes, they will be overbuilt, most likely. They'll be oversaturated, most likely. And then the rest of the demand comes up over time, and they're doing great again, and we build hotels again.
The
so
difference
they probably
is
will get overbuilt.
that you have a great location, though.
We have an okay location for hotels, and the reason I say that is because if you're interested in staying here for 3 or 4 days, this is a great location. If you cannot even see this off the interstate or off 36.
Oh, I see. From
up there in Louisville, where all the hotels are, you can see every one. I built the Hampton Inn up there 15 years ago and owned it for a number of years before we sold it. You can see all those hotels. Those are all drive-by. You're going to the CU game and you get a hotel.
Yeah, from that perspective, I'm thinking about from the consumer's perspective. If I had to choose to stay in Louisville in that hotel row, basically, that's really gives me what McDonald's across the street, or stay here where I can go to the movies, I can go walk to the mall. I'm going to choose your place.
Once you're here.
Once I'm here, exactly.
It's a great site.
Right.
That's for a hotel. That's right.
Are you hearing from hotel developers, though, that location along a busy roadway may not be as important as it once was, because you get these brand loyalty people that I know I have my favorite brand, and I don't really care where they are. I don't care if they're on the highway. I don't care if they're on a side street or where. I'm going to go to that hotel. Are you hearing that from?
Because you book them online too.
You book it online, and you're looking for a brand.
It's a mixed bag. I mean, so to answer your question, yes. I mean, it's the search engine optimization and all the Expedias and all the sites that we all use today. And it doesn't matter where you are, you're going to get GPS and go to it. Obviously, to your point. And most of these hotel groups, this is Hilton, for example. They're run by people that have been working in the hotel business for 30 years. So to them, the people that are proving it and spending their money on it, it really still matters. So it's kind of both today. It's in transition.
Okay.
The one thing about most of the hotels around here, they're full all the time. The high occupancy.
Numbers are better.
The numbers are better than the occupancy rate for commercial office space, that's for sure. Because, I'm always amazed that when I drop people off at the Marriott that's over by the Renaissance over there behind, you can't even find it. You can't find the entrance to that place, but that place is full almost all the time. I don't even know if people know that that's over there, but it's stuck way over there, and you can't even find it. So, I think that clearly there's never enough hotels. You can never, if you want to go to Boulder or any place, there's never enough hotels around, it seems like, to be able to find it. So I think a hotel there would be good, and I think that I see that when you get one, you usually get a second one.
The one comment about that is, to your comment earlier, was this hotel group tried really hard to have an exclusivity for the only hotel on the site. And we were able to negotiate that out. I mean, we've done this before too. So we were able to negotiate that out. But for sure, we wouldn't get more, in my opinion, we wouldn't get more than 2 hotels on this site. People would start saying, it's too much, too much competition. But they were not, that is not part of that. One other quick comment is, And we're clearly not talking about what exactly these would look like or what have you. But one thing about these units, some of the people we've talked to so far have said, like, these might be like 3 stories, and these might be 2 stories, and try and get these up with rooftop decks to oversee. And so there's a way to make these units pretty amazing as well. Whoever had that comment before.
Trustee Gregoris, and then
So, Matt, what are we deciding here tonight?
Yep,
So,
that was my
It's a
question.
concept.
No decisions, just general comments back to the group, and then they'll have to make a decision on whether
so
they
like
wanna
a positive
proceed or
head
not.
nod or like this, yeah, so.
No, there's no decision.
Just general likes or dislikes.
well, I'm not hearing a unanimous agreement, but do you feel like you've at least
Well,
gotten
kind of.
gotten a pulse from?
So for us to go the next step between us and this group and the hotel group, there's significant engineering around the site. I don't know what the number is, $200,000-$300,000 at least, that have to be spent before we come back in here and say, hey, here it is. Remember that concept review? Here it is. What do you think tonight? So I guess my question is, if we brought something back similar to this, would people be inclined to nod, yes or no? I'd love to have a little more definitive feedback on that if possible.
I don't mind the idea. I think it's a great start. I'd like to understand what the residential would actually look like, but I just don't want us to give up on the possibility of having something that would be revenue generating year round for the next several years, some retail or something else. If that's completely out and it's not going to work there, we're 100% certain. Great, then let's move forward with something more like this. But I'd like to at least see the studies on it.
I'm with Rita. When you had your stream of consciousness thinking, thumbs up. So I think we should have it come back.
And I think you know where I stand. Yes, I mean I'm interested in seeing next steps. Yes.
Yeah, I am too.
And I'm interested in this layout with the little commercial lot dotted a few more, maybe 3 or 4 more this way.
Closer to the hotel?
Yeah. Well, no.
This way?
Like
Or
add,
this way?
towards you, towards the
This way?
mall. Yeah.
Instead of the hotel? Or in
It-
front of the hotel?
In front of the hotel. That there's a few,
If it makes
retail, something that, on Colton that drives people in because there's some shopping there. Or some
over
dining.
here, this area?
Yes. That's my thoughts, and I'm perfectly fine with 2 hotels. I don't have any,
Oh, yeah.
or 1 or whatever.
2 hotels would be nice.
But I don't want to give up, entirely and end up with all residential. That I would not be happy with. But your idea of 50-50 is, more right on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anybody else? You can always watch us again on the taped replay if you want, if you have the desire.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
It's been we've been working on this a long time, and I'm excited. I think we might
We
crack it a little bit here.
Well, we
so.
appreciate you coming in. It is good to see some momentum on the
Yeah,
site.
and-
I think we've all driven by and seen seen the desire for something to happen there. So.
I've run through there, and I'd be thrilled at not having to go over mud to get to the trail around the lake.
And
Over here?
Yeah.
In that area? Yeah, we've had some issues over here. They've got trucks, so we can do whoever's talking. They've got trucks running, as you know, running in and out of here, putting gravel all over here.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
mess. We keep trying to stop them. And that's a whole
I've
other
seen
story.
residents use that as an exit, too.
Well, I really appreciate your market analysis. That was fascinating.
That is good.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next is item number 18, adoption of a resolution approving Superior Louisville Potable Water Interconnect Intergovernmental Agreement for Superior Metropolitan District Number 1. Town Manager.
Thank you. During the last 3 years, Superior and the city of Louisville have been working on an integration study looking at the possibility of sharing water and wastewater study, it appears that, well, we've identified the need and possibility for a potable water interconnect for emergency purposes. The town currently doesn't have such a connection. City of Louisville does with the city of Lafayette. And this is something that the town of Superior needs so that we have coverage. If there is ever an issue with our water treatment plant or any other issues. Through that study, we identified a couple of things that made this a possibility for the town to consider. One is the raw water delivery. Both municipalities have a similar delivery system. We utilize a community ditch, Marshall Lake, and Louisville utilizes the Louisville Superior Pump Station. And since we both utilize the same delivery system, we were able to design a potable interconnect that works for both municipalities. We also have similar water quality standards because our water supply comes from similar resources. Sorry, fellas, I saw my mic was off. We both have shares in the Colorado Big Thompson Windy Gap systems and have, which is Carter Lake water storage, and we distribute that water to both municipalities through their pipeline. After evaluating the study and this possibility, the staff has recommended interconnect plan that includes approximately 3,200 linear feet of 12-inch diameter PVC pipe along Marshall Road, which connects the northernmost portion of Superior's low zone with Louisville's mid and high zones at their southwest treatment plant. We attached in the packet for you a design of the overall final design of the potable interconnect, as well as a draft of the IGA. The board looked at the IGA back in June 8th, and had a discussion with regard to language in the IGA. We submitted a revised IGA to the city of Louisville and their staff. One of the major changes was the water rates, based on the discussion of the board. We proposed language that reflected an average of the two rates, because Louisville, of course, has different water rates than what we charge our residents. They have a sustainability committee, I think is what it's called, but they look at water issues. Their committee looked at the IGA and basically rejected the language that we had submitted and recommended to their city council, or have recommended to their city council, to use the flat rate of $3 per 1,000 gallons as a water rate. The city of Louisville, at their last meeting, approved a construction contract to build the potable interconnect with the pricing on that contract is good until October 17th. So the city of Louisville asked if we could put this on the board's agenda tonight. We had it out at a later date, so for your consideration, because their city council had some concerns about moving forward with construction without an IGA in place. I told the city manager over there that we had time tonight for your consideration of this, and they have it scheduled for their special meeting tomorrow night on their consent agenda, the approval of this. Just real quick, I think this is the last issue that I'm aware of in the IGA is just the water rates, based on what we proposed and what they got back to us with. So with that, open it up for questions.
Okay.
Okay, Trustee Sorelli.
Okay, well, comment and questions,
Sure.
I guess. It came up rather fast and
Yeah.
with little time.
Well, we were trying to schedule a meeting of the Joint Issues Committee so you guys could have some discussion before it went to the entire board and their entire council, but we just weren't able to make that happen.
I like the simplicity of the flat rate, and it actually, when I look at how we got to the other proposed rate, that it actually, Louisville's going to end up charging or getting back much less than they would have gotten under our proposed and far less than their construction water rate. My real question is, does this cover our cost of water that we may be using
Alex?
for this?
Does it cover the costs? Well, our what we charge for our construction water, for big users like the town center and what we're charging US 36, Ames Grant's taking our water, we charge almost $4 per 1,000 gallons for construction water. Louisville charges $7.67 per 1,000 gallons. So the $3 per 1,000 gallons is lower than our construction water rates. That's our bulk sales to users that come in from out of town and want to use it.
But what
I
is
think
it?
I think our cost for water treatment, I think, is comparable to that. Of course, we have a lot goes into our water rates, including the pipes and all that stuff, and reading meters, administration, all that stuff. Just the water itself is much less than $3 per 1,000 gallons. Because
And we did a study maybe 2 or 3 years ago. We hired a company to do a study for us on our water rates, and they gave recommendations, and they weren't all increases. Some were decreases in certain levels, and came up with a tiered rate for us to adopt. And they took all that into consideration as well.
Yeah, I'm aware of that, and there's policy issues involved in all of that, too.
Yeah.
But I don't want this to be something where we're actually losing money by providing the water. That's what I need to know. Not losing. I know we're losing, it's a lower rate than we normally charge, so we're losing that. But I don't.
Covering costs.
I want to be able to say we're covering our cost of providing this water if we do it at this rate. And that's.
I think that's a minimum.
Yeah.
And you feel like we are.
I feel like we are. And I would say a couple of things to consider. One is we don't plan on using this potable interconnect unless we have an emergency, which, knock on wood, hoping we don't, or if there's some occasion where we needed longer-term maintenance on the plant and we needed to shut it down for a week or something, then this would come into play and help us out. And the other thing I would say, the second thing I would say is, I think the IGA would need to be, as far as this provision, revisited every 2 to 3 years, just to look to make sure costs haven't gone up for maintenance or, operator services or labor costs or whatever it might be. And then we would work with Louisville to come up with an amendment to the IGA.
Right now, we're talking about adjusting it based upon a consumer price index. So
Right.
that assumes to me we're talking inflation.
Right. So my thought on the revisiting this particular section is just a cursory look every 2 to 3 years, just to make sure that costs haven't gone up above inflationary costs for whatever reason they might be.
Well, we don't know what direction and quantities are going to flow in which direction. I mean, that's another thing to revisit. If it's we're getting 3,000 gallons and they're getting 3,000, great. We're all working out. I think that's the intention of it. It's just for supplemental or emergency use when we need it.
Again, to the water that we treat, it's very, the costs are much lower than this. A lot of the cost of water is, buying the water supply, and we both have, this is a water supply issue. We both have plenty of water to serve our customers. It's just a matter of we may have emergencies that shut our water plant off. And so
I understand the whole concept, but
and so it's much.
Just had that fundamental question of
we have raw water and we're treating it, and we have to give it each other during time of emergency.
Okay, Trustee Dozell and then Pennington.
That's my concern too, is what does it really cost us? And it's not just the treating of it, it's the purchasing of it, it's the storing of it in the chimney rock or whatever the place is gonna be here. You know, all those places, all that stuff like that. I don't know why we came up with $3. Why wouldn't we have come up with $4 or $5 as the average? Who came up with $3, which is less than either one of our costs? And so I'd rather just say it's either gonna be $3 or $4 or $5, whatever the number is, the appropriate number per thousand, and or the cost to actually provide the water if it's higher. And I don't like ever having to do CPI, CPU kind of stuff. I think that's crazy. You just change the agreement if you need to do it. And then, so I think we should get it done because they're ready to do it. We talked about this months ago, but I don't know why they came down to $3. It's good for us because if we ever need water from them, it'll be cheap for us to buy it from them or to flow it this way. It's $3 per 1,000 gallons. But, so if you're happy with the number and that we're covering all the costs, I'm okay with that. My one comment, though, about the termination, the document says 180 days to terminate with written notice, and your memo said 30 days.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I'd rather do the 30 days.
Yeah,
I don't want to do the 180 days.
Right.
So that, I think the agreement needs to change to be with written notice.
The original agreement was 30 days, which is why my memo says that. I overlooked.
Well, how did it get to 180 then?
Well, it was the last, my recollection from the last discussion was with the board was, and maybe I missed this, but was that why we needed a longer period of time.
I think
because we have to work out a termination agreement for
30
disposition
days
of assets.
Yeah, 30 days.
I
way
remember
too
that.
short.
No, I do remember that discussion, and I remember us going, "Why in the world would we put 30 days in there? That's not long enough to have a meeting." I mean, that's
90 days better?
I
think
think
whatever- what
90
is it,
would be better than 180.
well. I think the goal is always, you do it as soon as you can do it. But I mean, that's why you put these, longer time frames, just so you don't back yourself
We're
into
hoping
a
that we
corner.
never have to exercise that clause.
Exactly. That's the point,
Yeah.
is that we should never have to.
Well, yeah, I mean,
exercise
we're agreeing to spend the money to build the thing. If it's in place, it's in place. It's not
Right.
like we're going to undo that.
But anytime you have a real long termination requirement, I think that's not a good thing.
Well, but
I'd
when
rather have a shorter one.
we have a few months out of the year that we're meeting one time, I think that at least 60 or 90 days is warranted.
Right.
I'm good.
90 would be minimum.
I'm good with 180 days. This is a big deal.
I am
and
too. That's
You
not-
can figure out half a year ahead of time that you want to
Yeah.
get out of it, and I think you
Okay.
should be thinking about it that far.
Okay,
in
Trustee
advance.
Price.
I'm not comfortable with anything about Section 9 here. I think $3 is spitting in the wind from both of you. I'm hearing, well, I think so, I feel so, etc. I want no so. What is our cost on providing this water? I mean, we should not be entering into an agreement where we don't know the cost of the material we're entering into. Secondly, the previous agreement did not have an inflation adjustment. It simply said $3, and I made the point. So in perpetuity, if this goes on 100 years, and water is now $300 per 1,000 cubic feet or whatever, we're still stuck with 3. You have to have an inflation adjustment, but the way we do it in here, in my opinion, is totally weak. This flat rate may be adjusted. It doesn't say when. Usually an adjustment occurs on an annual basis. And this says May, it doesn't give a time frame, and then it's the non-seasonally adjusted data. And so I would want to know why it's non-seasonally adjusted rather than seasonally adjusted if we're looking at the, the inflation index. And then I want to know what this 80%
Yeah.
of the flat rate has to do with.
I think that's the raw water that.
Where did the 80% come from?
Because you're not treating it, you're
So do we have numbers that support that untreated water sells for 80% of the cost of treated water? Is that what you're telling me?
Mhm.
Do we have that data that
No,
supports
I don't have that data offhand. And we, at your direction, we proposed an average of our construction water rates. We had $3.98 at $7.67. So we proposed an average of those two rates as being somewhere in between.
What
And
did
that's
we
what we
have
sent.
in our original proposal before, when this board discussed it several months back? What number was in at that point?
$3 per thousand square.
Okay, so that number didn't come from nowhere. It was in the original thing that came out a couple of months back.
Right,
And
that's
where
where-
did that number come from?
Where did that come from?
That number came from discussions with our staff and the city of Louisville staff.
But we don't know where they got it from. I mean, where did it emerge from? What's the reality of $3? I'm with Rita. Did we just pull it out of the air?
Well, the problem is we both have very different water rate structures. If you look at the residential rates, we have this tiered structure and we have a base rate. And so then we looked at construction water rates, and that's what we sell to Ames Granite or others when they want construction water. They just want it for a short term,
So
which is similar to what this is. And so we thought that was better than the residential rates, which
Right.
have a lot of other things.
I get
built
you.
in.
So I don't know why all the gobbledygook in here and why we would not just say a price of water shall be the actual effective cost at the time of use of construction water. Why do we even have to specify a price? Why is it we're not charging each other the actual cost at the time the incident occurs of construction water?
Of construction water,
If that's what you say
What's the
is more
city of
relevant.
Louisville's construction water rate?
$7.67
And what's our
per
construction
thousand.
water rate?
$3.98.
Yes, that's a bad deal
That's
for
the
us.
problem, yeah.
So we felt the construction water rates were
So-
comparable
It
to
says
what-
here ours is 583.
So
Well, the average was 583.
The average was 583.
So, in my mind, we're not out to gouge them for water in an emergency, and they're not out to gouge us for water when we have an emergency. If we have an emergency, we have other things we're trying to worry about than having to pay a whole bunch of money to the city of Louisville.
I'm not saying gouging. I assume construction rate is not gouging.
$7
Is that gouging?
Yeah. It's a little odd.
Okay. Well, the point is, $3, it just seems spitting in the wind to me. And I don't, let's say this turns out to be a one-sided relationship where we're always supplying the water. For whatever reason, that's how it works out. I want to make sure that that we're not out, that we're covering our cost. Going forward for 100 years, we're covering our actual cost of supplying that water, and we're not subsidizing it $1 1,000 feet or $2 1,000 feet because we poorly considered this issue on this side of agreeing to do it. And I'm not convinced we're not.
You realize this for emergencies only, that may never happen.
But we shouldn't have to subsidize another community.
Well,
I
but-
mean, should think this through.
Well, and that's, Matt's point was that we review this on a regular basis, see how much is used, see what the costs are. I mean, isn't that part of this? There's an ongoing review that future boards can do and discontinue it if it's just not working.
Well, I would add a minimum. Well, I cannot vote for this. This is so against sound fiscal policy to just be spitting at it that I can't do it. But I would certainly suggest putting in the flat rate will be adjusted on January 1 of each year based on X. And I would make it, I would have to research it, but my instinct is to say seasonally adjusted data.
I think to keep,
I'm not
I
happy
mean, to
with
keep
how
the.
this looks.
I
We
think
could
to-
say we're going to do it free, too. We're free as a spitting in the wind is what I'm feeling right now. And that we'll just, gentlemen's agreement, help each other out in terms of emergency, in case of emergency. So this
The
is-
reality of it is that's probably what we'll basically do, because then we say that we flow some this way and then flow some, we kind of have
Then
an
it's a wash. Then it's a
account.
wash.
It's
I
an
mean,
account.
it's-
You
you-
know,
I
it's
don't
an
know if it's a
accounting of
wash.
it.
No
pun
Yeah.
intended.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
no.
nobody knows if it's going to be a wash or not.
Well,
And
that's
our
right.
job is to protect the town in the case of
Well,
worst possible occurrence.
So Louisville's got a construction contract ready to go, and I think what they're asking us is to get this little detail done so that they've got the confidence to move forward in the construction contract. And I think if we don't move this forward, it's going to, I don't think they're going to look very kindly on it, because the contractor's probably going to love the opportunity to rebid the contract and double it, given what's going on in the construction industry these days.
Yeah,
So
but here we
I-
are again, against a deadline. This board has complained time and time again, don't bring us something against a deadline. So
Well,
here we are
that's-
against October 17th deadline. We got to do something tonight. I'm not going to do it, so I'll leave it up to the rest of you.
Okay. Trustee Hansen and then Dozel.
Yeah, I tend to believe that this is rarely, if ever, going to be used, so it really could be immaterial, but I actually agree with Sandy that the $3 rate just kind of seems thrown in there. And I would like to see some kind of backup of why we choose that number. So I would agree that I'm not really 100% on board with it until we have some rationale why we're using that.
Okay, Trustee Dozel.
I think that it's important that we move ahead because we have said we're going to do the construction of the connection, the interconnection. And we looked at it, it's been going back and forth, back and forth. It's not like all of a sudden,
Right.
but the suddenness of it is they're ready to start the work on that we approved already. And then they're, on the other side, our neighbors across the street are concerned that unless we have an IGA in place, they don't want to spend the money. And I think that's a
Well, of course
reasonable
not. That's
expectation.
reasonable, yes.
So what I would propose, I don't know where we came up with the $3. It seems to me $4 would make more sense, but I'm okay with saying $3 because that's what they've already looked at, across our neighbors across the street. But I think we should take out all that CPIU stuff and just say that we're going to look at it a year from now and make an adjustment of rate if warranted.
Well, put the language in that the rate must be reviewed on an annual basis.
Right,
for
that's what I think what I just said, but we're
appropriateness.
saying it differently, but
Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
every year you do, to say we will review it every year, annually, we'll review the rate to determine if a change needs to be made based on the cost of the water. And then that'll be,
My only issue with that is that we have a 180-day termination provision, so we would have to do the review,
June.
within
In
the
June.
first.
well, that's why I think
May,
100.
in May,
Right.
actually.
That's
It
why
actually has to
180
be
days
May.
is unrealistic for
Well,
any
Well,
contract.
I mean, I guess,
You don't have to cancel it, you're just changing the rate.
right.
That's not a
It's like if we
cancellation.
don't come to terms, let's say we
Right.
don't come
Oh.
to terms on the rate,
Well,
then
then-
we can't cancel it.
Well, we
So-
can.
Right.
But we would just have to carry that $3 per thousand for that.
For the next 180 days, right.
Right.
For
And
180 days.
and give notice at
Or,
that time.
or, just a suggestion, we tried to come up with a rate, our construction water rate there is an average of 2, and they rejected that. Maybe we propose 398, our construction water rate, and send that back to them. That's what we feel our cost of the water.
Or just
is.
make it $4.
Or $4. whatever.
I think we're just splitting hairs here. I think
do
we
too.
I think we either vote this up or down and move forward. I think retweaking this at this hour is just
But
not.
can we vote it up or down, including what Rita said about having the yearly annual?
Review of the rate.
Is that in there or
Is
not?
that- is that-
No. So
I-
what
I
I
agree
heard
with-
Trustee
I agree
Dozel
with
say was, you have $3 per thousand, take out the CPI inflationary language, add in that the rate will be reviewed
On a yearly basis?
on a yearly basis.
Yes.
So can I ask one more time,
By
who came up with the $3? Is that their committee over there?
We came
So-
up with first. We
Well,
put
no,
in
it was
first.
a discussion between both staffs.
But we suggested this, they rejected it, and they went the original, so, I mean, who's right?
So it's more of, it's a negotiation thing now then, right? So why can't we just send, I mean, they have to have this in place by the 17th. That's 5 days from now. Can't we counter back to them and?
Tomorrow
give-
night's their meeting when they want
Yeah.
to approve it.
So I'm confused here. We haven't approved anything. We've been just discussing this for I don't know how long. But it's now come forward and the city of Louisville is approving a construction contract.
They
You
have
know,
approved construction.
They already
No,
approved
no,
a contract.
we've done that too.
But
We've
we
said to
agreed
go
with that.
ahead, get it put in place, and we
We
know
did.
what we're supposed to do. We've already done
Yes,
that too,
yes,
back in
yes.
When did
May
we
and
vote
June.
on that?
Well, June something or other.
So we voted
For
to
the-
tell them, yes.
We had
Yes.
already done the engineering.
Right, we've already done the engineering for the
As I
connection.
understood,
approved-
all we did is design here. Am I
Yeah.
right?
The agreement, so as part of the project, we agreed to do the design work, which the board approved that contract. That work is done. City of Louisville agreed to do the construction oversight.
Right.
Right.
So that's what
So
they're
we never-
proceeding with.
I mean, did we agree that we were proceeding with this? This was something that we all
Well, I
as a
don't think
board
we would have
already.
ever done the design if we weren't gonna.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
We voted that we wanted to
Yeah.
proceed with.
No, we all
getting
thought it
work
was a
done.
good idea. Yeah,
And it
absolutely.
is a good
It's a
idea.
win-win.
Yeah.
Okay, so I like the addition of that. I would think that should not cause them too much heartburn to say we're going to review it every year and take out the
Take out the
consumer price.
CPI calculation, that's just cumbersome.
Okay.
And just say, we'll review it.
Okay, can we
CPI,
have,
by the way, is not cumbersome, and standard inflation adjustments are done all the time, so it isn't cumbersome.
And there
But
hasn't
it-
been inflation for,
Yeah, if you want to do it a
How
different
long has it been?
manner, that's up to you.
it
Can-
No, what I'm
depends
saying
on
is that
which
you end up
one
with
you
some
use.
penny amount instead
What's,
of a nice
what's
round
cumbersome,
There's no
Rita, if you
Social
want to
Security
talk about
increase this
cumbersome,
year.
is opening it up to two boards' discussion every year is cumbersome. Applying a CPI index automatically each year is totally uncumbersome
Definitely.
compared to having
But it
two
doesn't-
boards discussing it
It doesn't
each
necessarily
year.
mean
There's
that the
no
boards
room
have
for
to
error.
look at it. If the staff comes back and said no need to change, and that's a recommendation,
Yeah.
that's it, right?
Yeah, but you've got a new board there, a new board here, everyone discusses.
I think
and
we're
has a change
overthinking
of
this.
heart.
I think that's what I said the last time we had this discussion. We're just way overthinking this.
We're certainly not overthinking the $3 rate, which is.
yes, yes, we are.
I
Yes,
mean, we
we
just,
are.
$3, thank you.
Okay,
I
can
think we
someone,
should-
can
I
someone make a motion?
Yes,
I mean,
thank you.
do I have to make a motion?
You
What do I
do.
have to make?
Just make it.
You have to
I
make-
approve the resolution with those changes of removing the calculation of CPIU and say having a review, annual review of the rate.
And are we
By
sticking to the
both-
180 days?
Hmm?
Wait,
By
wait.
both entities.
No, but do we want, I mean, I'm gonna have to go back to what was just brought up. Do we need to go back to the board and the city council respectively for those reviews, or is it done by staff?
I think it
Is
should
there-
be done by staff, and if a change is warranted, then it has to come
Yeah,
back to the
exactly.
boards. Does that make sense?
Okay, that's gonna be very hard to put into words.
It's not just if a change is warranted. If you're at $3 and the actual rate is now $100, even if staff says don't change it, the board should know about that difference.
If it's $100, then that warrants a change, I'm telling
Not
you.
necessarily according to staff, because they
Did you
may
make a
have other
resolution or no?
considerations.
I made a resolution that we do it based on that
But
change,
is there an
but
actual
the
resolution?
attorney
Well, I'm
we're-
just trying
we're-
to
is
clarify
understanding,
what
trying to
the
understand
language
what we
is.
want to
So I
like.
can remove the CPI.
I think that's a bad idea.
Would you, let me ask a question.
I'll be honest with you, I would leave the CPI. It is, it's in many, many, many contracts. I agree with Trustee Pennington. It's a very, very objective standard.
Kendra, why
Okay.
did you pick unseasonal rather than seasonally adjusted?
I didn't, this is Louisville's language. I didn't pick any of this, so.
Seasonally adjusted means you take into account
Right.
all the seasonability, and
Correct.
it
Okay, so if we leave,
You know.
if we follow that recommendation and leave that in there, do we need this annual review piece, or no?
No.
No, it says it may be adjusted by the percentage change up or down of the consumer price index. That would stay. So
Okay.
that, it doesn't say annually, I agree, and it also doesn't, and if you want to make it seasonally as opposed to non-seasonally, we could make that change as well.
So
I'm just throwing it out there,
okay.
that using the CPI.
And you
is
gotta get rid of the
common.
word maybe, or
I
you've
agree.
got to have an annual review by somebody, staff or a board.
Well,
Okay,
there we
so-
go.
so
Now, there
they-
we get to the point that I
You
was gonna
either-
make.
You
that
say an annual review
if-
on January, no later than January 30th of each year, and you have it just routine and mechanical.
Okay, so based on town attorney's comments, are we going with the original resolution?
Yes.
Yes, but with those adjustments.
Okay, well, here's what I'm hearing, and see if this works. On January 30th of each year, the flat rate shall be adjusted by the percentage change up or down of the consumer price index. I'll leave out all the others. And then it says from the most recent non-seasonally adjusted data. Do we want to make it seasonally adjusted?
What do you usually do?
Non-seasonal. I've never seen it non-seasonally adjusted, but I don't know, perhaps there's a reason.
We never put that, we just put the CPI.
Right. Okay, I'm just gonna put,
That's what the U, does the U stand for urban? Okay.
yes, urban consumers.
Right, that's a Denver area here, or this urban area.
I'll just remove the language that says from the most recent non-seasonally adjusted data available for aforementioned index. So it will just simply say the consumer price index.
Well, that's fine.
Okay, good.
So the thing we lose from that is this idea of when or if we do a review to see if the cost of water is more than the $3. Because we're only increasing
You're
it.
doing that.
We still
You're
haven't.
presuming it's correct.
So I'm just asking, because you added that we have an annual review about the fee, the water number, in addition to the CPI. So now we're all okay with, if we've determined, staff determines that the water costs are more than $3, then we go in and give them 180 days to cancel we give notice that says in 100 days we're canceling, or we're going to change it.
Or we're gonna change,
To
yeah.
that,
Yeah.
is that, we're all in agreement?
That's the negotiation at that
Yeah, I
point.
know, but I just want to make sure that's where we're at now, is that we're $3 plus CPIU, absolutely changing it up from $3. And then if we want to do a review and find that we need to make it higher, then we'll have to do notice that we want to change the agreement.
And that's fair, actually.
Well, I'm just making
Yeah,
sure
no,
we know what the
I-
resolution
I-
is.
So what you're saying is that the cost of water increases more than the CPU, and you know about it, and you want to give 180 days notice. Either there's a negotiation then to change this section of the IGA, which it can be modified by both parties.
Right.
Or there's a 180-day termination.
Correct.
Okay, so do we want to state that to them in any way, or do you just want to leave it the way it is? Or
I would
Matt,
leave
you
it the
talked to
way it is.
Malcolm
I would
about
leave it the way it is.
Okay?
and-
Okay.
Okay, I'm about to read the resolution.
Good.
Okay.
You do
Superior Metropolitan District Number 1, Resolution Number SMD Number 1-7, Series 2015. A resolution of the Board of Directors of the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 approving an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Louisville for the Superior Louisville Potable Water Interconnect Project.
Motion by trustee Dozell. Second by trustee Gregoris.
As amended.
As amended.
As
yes.
amended.
As we just discussed.
As discussed.
And can you
Thank
read that back then?
I'd be happy to. And I was just saving it, so give me 1 second. Takes a second, sorry. So go back to my number. Okay, so section 9, the third sentence will read as follows. On January 30th of each year, this flat rate shall be adjusted by the percentage change up or down of the consumer price index for all urban consumers, CPIU, in the Denver, Boulder, Greeley area, period. If the buyer provides raw water to be treated in return, the rate shall be 80% of the flat rate stated above.
Oh,
Okay.
I didn't know it said down. I just never think that we should drop something down when we think the cost is $3, but I'm not going to debate it. It's never going to change anyway, so I'm
Okay.
fine with it.
Motion by trustee Dozell, second by trustee Gregoris. All those in favor?
Do we need a roll call on that? Or?
No. Oh,
Yeah, let's just do a roll call.
okay.
Roll call vote.
Dozell?
Yes.
Sorelli?
Yes.
Folsom?
Yes.
Gregoris?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Pennington?
No.
Williams?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes. And let it be noted that we're right on schedule for item number 19, executive session.
I
We
make
have
a motion to go.
Motion to go into executive
Yes.
session by,
To read the,
okay, sorry.
sorry. Actually, I have to read the reasons.
Item number 19, executive session to consider personnel matters pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6-4024F regarding town manager's evaluation and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6-4024E regarding town attorney's evaluation. Have a a motion to
I'll
go
make a
into.
motion to go into executive session.
Motion by trustee Gregoris, second by Mayor Pro Tem Williams. All those in favor? All passes unanimous. Okay, so we're going to take a short